Honorable members, at the break we were debating the supplementary appropriation bill. I presume we are now ready. The chair recognizes the honorable member for East Grand Bahama.
I only wanted to table. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I only wanted to table two documents that we promised that we would table prior to. The documents are the Bahamas Country Commercial Guide from the IMF that speaks to the 14% increase, and also the fiscal strategy report. And that fiscal strategy report on page 14, because the member did ask where we got the comment that was being read. So I just want to make sure that the member knows that what was being read came from the fiscal strategy 2022, and that would be at page 14. And it does speak to the 3.7. It speaks to the 3.7% that I referred to in my communication. So I wanted to be clear that this was both documents are evidence of the fact of what I said. And just so that I could, a matter of completeness, I said that I would withdraw. I said that I would withdraw. If you would recall, Madam Speaker, I said when I was challenged, I said I would withdraw it, subject to me being able to bring the evidence. I am now withdrawing that withdrawal so that I can, now that I provided the evidence. So I wanted just to make sure that the record reflects that I've withdrawn that withdrawal.
We support Neil. We support Neil. We support Neil. The chairman would not leave a balloon.
What are the documents you lie on the table? As many? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Golden Gates.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, yes, it's on. I give glory and honor to God, who is my Savior, thanking Him for this day and this privilege to stand here in this house to represent the great people of Golden Gates and our nation. Madam Speaker, I rise today to deliver my contribution for this outstanding mid-year budget. Through prudent forecast, disciplined financial management, and a focus on the most meaningful capital expenditures, we have brought to this Parliament the lowest deficit in over a decade. We significantly reduced the deficit despite achieving many of the items on our ambitious, transformative agenda. But before I go further into my remarks, Madam Speaker, I would like to acknowledge how truly blessed we are as a nation. No man nor woman can take credit for what God has bestowed upon us, which is peace and prosperity that can only come from Him. We must always keep in mind the architect of this universe and this country, through whom we are empowered as leaders to steer this nation through the treacherous waters toward a brighter future for all. We acknowledge His hand in all that we do. The good book warns in Deuteronomy about those who think my power and the strength of my hands has produced this wealth for me. It is that line of thinking that leads to the kind of gross arrogance and pride that comes before a fall. This administration has hit the ground running on day one. We kept our word in turning back many of the ill-advised policies of the Minnis administration that was strangling the economy. As a result, today, our tourism numbers, and Madam Speaker, I'd like to quote a story from ZNS News last night, the 28th of February, that says, Nassau Cruise Port was record-breaking with 28,554 passengers, plus 10,302 crew members on 6 ships, totaling 38,856 persons. Not only are our tourism numbers breaking records, but our unemployment numbers continue to fall. With the economy secured, we took the time to do a lot of the foundational work and policy development to set a blueprint for sustained growth and prosperity. Take a look at Operation Secure, the most comprehensive plan ever announced to address the immigration situation. Our Prime Minister, as well as my ministerial colleagues, the members for Carmichael and Freetown, should be applauded for their efforts. We do things properly in this administration, Madam Speaker. It requires decisiveness and a bias towards action, and it also requires thoughtfulness and planning. Any effective government must strike the right balance. But the Bahamian people don't judge us by our plans, Madam Speaker. They judge us by our execution, our results, and the amount of lives we are able to touch. And we, this administration, would have it no other way. Of course, over the past year, there were policies and initiatives that we would have liked to move along even faster. The reality is that we cannot accomplish everything all at once, but we offer no excuses, Madam Speaker. We're here to get the job done to the best of our ability, and we make the hard choices each and every day. I've seen the passion of our Prime Minister, our Deputy Prime Minister, ministerial and parliamentary colleagues that they bring with them to work each day, and the commitment that allows us to sustain our effort, build on our momentum during our first year and a half in office. Madam Speaker, for the benefit of those who simply haven't been paying attention, let me state on the record what we have done in the past year. Unemployment has decreased from record highs to pre-pandemic levels. In fact, since last year, it has already decreased by an additional 2%. Tourist arrivals are exceeding pre-pandemic levels, and we are on track for a record-breaking year. Kudos to the member for the Exumas and Ragged Island. Last year, we experienced 8% economic growth. Now, Central Bank is predicting an additional 6 to 7% in economic growth for this year. We have hired hundreds of new officers in the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, Royal Bahamas Police Force, and the Department of Immigration. We've installed free Wi-Fi on parks throughout New Providence and rolling out access points in our family island. In healthcare, we have upgraded local clinics in New Providence, and as our Prime Minister would have noted earlier today, the upgrade of 91 clinics is on tap. We have hired more nurses and doctors, and we're securing funding for not one, but 2 hospitals, one in Grand Bahama and one in New Providence. So healthcare in the Bahamas will not be the same after this investment. And Tall Pines, we also see the work that you're doing. After not one home was built in over 4 years under the previous administration, we are addressing the national housing shortage by building dozens of affordable homes and hundreds more are on the way. But that was not enough. We introduced a rent-to-own initiative to expand access to home ownership for those who were financially capable but may not qualify for traditional mortgages. This is a first, Madam Speaker, and the member for Elizabeth deserves all the credit she gets for diligent work in this vein. And just this week, we saw the groundbreaking and launch of the $15 million Golden Yoke Egg Production Agricultural Initiative. Central and South Eleuthera, we see the work you're doing too, and we are excited. Excellent. We are starting off with ensuring that eggs consumed in the Bahamas are produced in the Bahamas. Then we will expand to poultry and eventually hit our target of reducing the food import bill by 25%. This administration is making a $100 million investment in food security. That is change we will see on our dinner plates and feel in our pockets. Of course, within the public service, we paid out double increments across the board and made payments reflecting the increase in minimum wage. After years of union leaders crying about poor engagement from government, we have successfully signed over 15 new agreements. And one today, and more about to be announced, Madam Speaker. 16 and counting. Remember, Zane, remember when they said, Yamakra, that the MOU we signed with the unions before election was a political ploy? What they fail to understand, that we understand, Madam Speaker, is that good governance is the best politics. It is our best interest to keep our word because it's in the country's best interest. In total, $20 million was budgeted for new union agreements, and we were able to keep expenditures below this amount at $18 million. This is the first time ever that new agreements did not lead to huge overspending in the budget, because this is the first time that the agreements were actually completely budgeted for. This is strategic planning in action, Madam Speaker. All of these achievements, and the government has beat its revenue forecast by $270 million while staying relatively on target when it comes to our spending. The booming economy plays a large role in this. We have also the efforts of the Revenue Enhancement Unit and the Department of Inland Revenue to thank for making tax collection more effective, more efficient, and a focus on compliance. Madam Speaker, within the public service, we've taken our commitment to fiscal management very seriously. We're largely on target despite a number of items implemented during the fiscal year that were not initially budgeted for. But for the sake of our public servants, we embarked upon an ambitious agenda with a full understanding that some reallocation would be necessary to facilitate high priority items. So far for the year, we have spent roughly 55% of our allotted budget. We're requesting an additional 8% increase to cover necessary expenses. As you can imagine, among our major expenses are amounts related to salaries. Compensation of employees widened due to accelerated staff promotions, hiring for new and existing agencies and units, the payment of arrears, confirmations, and reclassifications. For permanent and pensionable employees, we are requesting an additional $1.2 million in funding. We have prioritized these items and are working as quickly as possible to get our public servants the money they've earned. My constant refrain has been, behind each delay in payment and each stagnant promotional exercise is a Bahamian with hopes, dreams, and ambitions. For this reason, we will not stop working until every matter is resolved. We've also funded the return of increments for all permanent and pensionable public servants after they were halted by the previous administration. Within the first half of this budget cycle, we funded the public service minimum wage increase to cushion the impact of global inflationary forces and improve the standard of living for government employees at the lowest levels of the pay scale. All of these activities were not originally within our budget, yet, due to disciplined financial management and strategic reallocations, we were able to stay largely within budget. All other salary-related needs are being addressed through reallocations. The special employment budgets are being reviewed and funds are being reallocated to cover expenses such as the transport expense responsibility budget, which was increased significantly after being historically underfunded, and the domestic travel-related budget. You may note that the allocations for office rent and lease agreements are at 79% and 96% of total budget as of January 2023. These are also chronically underfunded areas. The government is currently carrying out a consolidation exercise, combining many separate agencies into the same premises for savings. In the short term, this has led to increased costs as 33 previously unbudgeted leases were entered into and many existing leases were terminated. As a result of this consolidation exercise, we anticipate a savings will be realized in the next fiscal year. An additional 12 million is being requested to account for the new 33 leases, and an additional 7.6 million is being requested to meet NIB finance and operations leases and maintenance charges. The end result of this activity will be long-term savings for the government and improved working decent conditions for public servants. On the 19th of December 2022, the Cabinet of the Bahamas approved the digitalization of records, files, and workflows for the Ministry of Public Service. This is a critical investment in the improved efficiency and effectiveness of the public service as we carry out our mandate as the government's Human Resources Department. Once complete, this exercise will change the way public service works for years to come. The process of digitalization has already been initiated. Considering the accelerated pace at which we are moving, we're requesting an additional $925,000 during this fiscal year. It is listed as consulting services and will be used specifically for the digitalization initiative. These funds are being requested because in the case of digitalization, it is long overdue, and the sooner we can get it done, the better. We cannot wait until the next budget cycle. Other major initiatives within our budget include a request for an additional $11.2 million for pensions. We must take care of our retirees, and that is not an option. With the increase in government pensions last budget cycle, along with additional retirements, not all of which occurred at the projected time, it was necessary to supplement this line item. As can be seen, the vast majority of items are well within the projected amount. Of the additional funding being requested, over 90% is attributable to pensions, rent and lease consolidations, and digitalization. Despite the unforeseen expenses throughout the year as we expedite our agenda, we are largely on target. And in the areas where we have reallocated or requested more funds, these expenditures are associated with essential functions and initiatives within the ministry. We're achieving our imagination of the public service while maintaining fiscal discipline. The common trend among all of our major expenditures is the need to take care of our public servants and empower them to do their best work. We've remained focused, Madam Speaker, on the people. Just ask any public servant who's received increments, those who benefited from the minimum wage increase. I've received dozens of text messages on my phone over the holidays, 78 on Boxing Day alone, from public servants thanking us for the increases and the work that we are doing. The public servants have felt the difference in their bank accounts. And these are not the only people who have benefited from our efforts. Ask those who were promoted, received back pay and gratuities, had long-standing matters resolved, and received long-awaited increases. Ask the trainees of the PSPEP program. We're helping so many people through the work that we're doing in the public service, and we're not breaking the bank to do it. Madam Speaker, our results speak for themselves. This is why I resent the ignorance of those who claim that we've avoided making the hard decisions or the tough decisions. Unfortunately, the person who said that isn't here. But you don't shrink a deficit to the lowest levels in 10 years by avoiding tough decisions. I saw the member for St. Barnabas put out a statement in which he talked about a tax and spend policy. Madam Speaker, only one administration increased VAT to over 60% and then ran up the biggest deficit in the Bahamas history. I believe that the member for St. Barnabas is aware of who that administration is and who's guilty of that. That is the definition of tax and spend, Madam Speaker. The math is simple. Deficits shrink when the revenues you gain outpace the amount you're spending. Deficits shrink when the revenue you gain outpaces the amount you are spending. If we were spending proportionate to gained revenue, the deficit would not have decreased. Let's be clear, a large portion of our revenue gains are thanks to the robust growth of our economy under this administration, not due to any increase in taxes. But as our revenues have gone up, our expenditure has remained disciplined. We have prioritized to ensure the major policies and initiatives are able to be launched while controlling spending in other areas. And that is how you get the lowest budgetary deficit in 10 years, Madam Speaker. St. Barnabas, I know you learned a lot of lessons as the executive chair of Beaches and Parks, and we all know the stories of the millions of dollars spent over budget consecutively, and there were many lessons there. But Marco City always says, stay in the spirit. So I'm not going to single you out, St. Barnabas, because you were part of an administration that demonstrated a lack of fiscal management. So my point is, no one. So my point is, Marco City and St. Barnabas. Really? Okay. No one from that administration has the moral authority to come to talk about raising taxes or overspending, because you are the poster boys of tax and spend. So now, all of a sudden, there seems to be some experts in managing a budget, and you have the nerve. And you have the nerve to talk about, managing the budget for the lower income people when your own leader spoke about taking care of the poor the next time. The leader who said that. The leader who said that. Okay. It was. We're talking about the former administration. The leader. Competent authority. Yeah, he probably knows him as that. It was always next time with certain politicians, but I see why they make the mistake in thinking that on this side, Madam Speaker, it's business as usual, because that's what it was under their watch. But I have to remind colleagues on the next side, in case they forgot, that it's still a new day. Madam Speaker, over a year and a half ago, this administration hit the ground running, and we've not let up. We have struck the right balance between bringing new vision to government while retaining the necessary experience. While many of our team members may have been new, the vision and values of PLP governance have stood the test of time. With that as our foundation, our Prime Minister built a team that was capable of delivering for the Bahamian people in a big way. There's no token people or mascots over here. When we brought young people to the table, he put them in positions where they could make a difference. He ensured that women had multiple seats within the cabinet and in positions in our public service. There's no bench warmers on this team, Madam Speaker, and only workers and servants make up this team. As I close, Madam Speaker, I want to remind the Bahamian people that we're only a year and a half into our term. All that we have done so far represents a fraction of what we intend to do. This is only the beginning. Our nation has come very far in the past 50 years, and this government is working with the people to build a foundation for the people for the next 50 years and beyond. Madam Speaker, thank you, and may God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Thank you, Honorable Member Asmini. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Garden Hills.
this afternoon in this honorable house to give thanks to Almighty God for allowing me to see here another day and to represent the great people of the Gardeners constituency and of, by extension, the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture. But before I begin, Madam Speaker, I would like to give condolences to those who would have lost their loved ones in the Gardeners community, and also say happy birthday to those who are celebrating their birthday during this week. Madam Speaker, United Nations recently released a fact sheet entitled Youth, a Smart Investment. According to that fact study, failure to invest in children and youth triggers substantial economic, social, and political costs resulting from negative outcomes such as early school dropout, poor labor market entry, risky sexual behaviors, and abuse, substance abuse, and crime and violence. Madam Speaker, this Davis-led administration is committed to investing in the youth and all Bahamians of this country. The many programs offered by my ministry under the Youth, Sports, and Culture umbrella is a testament of this commitment. Madam Speaker, I am proud to announce that the Division of Youth has fully embraced the 22-23 theme, Youth, Building a Bold Future, being bright, being optimistic, being laborious, and being diverse. Because the programs implemented by the persons in this division, the division remains on the cutting edge, and the Division of Youth has become the premier youth development agency in the country. The principal goal and objective of the division is to assist with the growth and development of the nation's youth and their overall advancement. It is with an almost overwhelming sense of pride that I speak about one of my ministry's newest programs, the National Youth Guard. As indicated in our Blueprint for Change, we have promised to establish a National Youth Guard for young people to receive technical training, enabling them to serve in a disaster response corps. Madam Speaker, this program has a holistic approach in its short space and time. More than 70 young Bahamians from about 10 islands in the country between the ages of 18 and 25 years old have enlisted in this program. The goal of the Youth Guard program is to equip a generation of young Bahamians to be able to assist the country in the event of national disaster or emergency. Their journey through the first phase of the program, which has focused on training, began on January 16 at the Police Training College in Grand Bahama. Madam Speaker, I might say it is progressing steadily. Madam Speaker, our Youth Guard recruits have had soft skills training with youth officers and leaders. They have trained with officers from the Royal Bahamas Police and Defense Forces, in addition to having shelter management training. Madam Speaker, these individuals are now equipped with the knowledge of the history of National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, disaster risk reduction, and other topics. The Disaster Restructuring Authority, DRA, provided training on risk assessments, the importance of volunteering, and practical demonstrations in the field. All participants will be certified from the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institution, BTVI, and Occupational Safety and Hazard Administration, known as OSHA. Madam Speaker, they will also complete core courses in carpentry, electrical, and plumbing, which will enhance their employment opportunity upon completion. Madam Speaker, in addition to the aforementioned, the LJM Maritime Academy is currently providing Sea Safers training and Watchkeeper certification. And may I add that they will also be offering Captain B licensings to 10 of the Youth Guard recruits. Madam Speaker, this program is preparing our youth for a brighter and successful future. This administration is investing in our young people. Madam Speaker, in a few weeks, They will round out this phase of training with the Bahamas Psychological Association and NEMA's CERT, or Community Emergencies Response Training Certification. Madam Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to thank and recognize Youth Officer Mr. Kenneth Fraser, who is leading this program along with assistance of the Grand Bahama team led by Youth Programs Coordinator Carla Brown Roker, Youth Officer Kenneth Miller, Program Assistant Krihana, and Nassau's Youth Officers Don Corley Jr. and Brian Bain. Madam Speaker, we are deeply indebted to our above-mentioned partners who are working tirelessly and diligently to ensure the success of this program. Much of our tasks in youth work depends on partnership in order to thrive. We look forward to the conclusion of the training at the end of March when the nation's chief, our Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Brave Davis, will participate in the closing ceremony. Madam Speaker, the closing ceremony is not the end for these cadets. Upon graduation from the program, these cadets will be placed into a corporate world and commence their internship phase, which is set to begin in mid-April. Madam Speaker, it is a privilege of mine to advise that an investment of $182,502 has been invested into this program to date, with another $500,000 to be invested before the end of this fiscal year. Madam Speaker, the Youth Leaders Certification Program, which is a hallmark program that provides young Bahamians, youth workers, and youth advocates with opportunities and access to cutting-edge, cross-sectoral, and multifaceted training has commenced. The Youth Leaders Certification Training is currently taking place in New Providence and Grand Bahama, and in particular, Freeport and East End. Madam Speaker, the standardization of delivery of youth work remains a critical focus in ensuring that our youth work practitioners are all equipped and have access to shared and proven strategies. Madam Speaker, there are 100 participants presently enrolled in Grand Bahama and 40 in New Providence. This is one of the largest cohorts at any given time, which demonstrates individuals' commitment to the mentoring and guidance and development of our young people. The government investment in both cohorts is some $30,000. Madam Speaker, the Job Ready program, which equips 16 to 18-year-olds with much needed job preparedness skills and enhancements, commenced in Grand Bahama last week and is currently being presented in New Providence. With great anticipation, we look forward to the internship phase and conclusion of these cohorts. The investment in this program is some $77,000, inclusive of tuition, training, materials, stipends for students, and facilitators. Madam Speaker, the Fresh Start programs got underway in New Providence on Monday, February 20th, with 60 eager participants for the second time since its hiatus due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This long-standing hallmark program of my ministry has assisted countless graduates who have been able, through the skills gained during the program, to secure full-time, gainful employment. The investment for this Fresh Start cohort is some $120,000. Again, I must emphasize how much we appreciate Helsley partnership with various educational and training institutions, as well as the role of corporate Bahamas plays in embracing the youth of our nation. In addition to providing a stake and a seat for young Bahamians to participate in the nation's economy while building their livelihood, it is an indelible fact that young Bahamians are being inspired to take ownership of and feel a part of this country. And this, in turn, ensures that our country reaps the rewards, benefits, and fruits of the seeds being sowed. Madam Speaker, we remain committed to providing youth organizations with resources, training, networking opportunities, and funding. An investment of some $59,000 in grants have been made so far in this fiscal period. Madam Speaker, we take this time once again to say thank you to each of our partners and stakeholders for this rich work that they do in this field of youth development. As Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, it is my honor to work with the team of professionals within the Division of Youth, led by Division Head Ms. Sandina Neely, and the team of passionate, dedicated, and loyal and talented individuals to whom I say huge thank you. Madam Speaker, there are many phenomenal athletes throughout the history who state that success comes from preparation and opportunity. Preparation comes in the form of investment, and the investment of effort, time, and resources are vital to meet opportunities head-on and attain successful outcomes. Madam Speaker, the investment in our sporting future can be seen and, most importantly, felt throughout the sporting communities in the Bahamas. It is safe to say, based on the various sporting activities, programs, and events being held in the last few months, that Bahamian sports is back. And in full swing, this after the hiatus from the pandemic. Madam Speaker, these last few months were vitally important for the return of sports, mainly in our family islands, and my ministry has been instrumental in assisting with the programs, events, and overall development. This year's theme is Unity in Sports, a Golden Jubilee. Madam Speaker, the Carifta, this small but prowess country, which will celebrate its 50th anniversary of Bahamian independence in July, is the host of the biggest junior track and field championships for the region. Madam Speaker, it is well known that the National Thomas A. Robinson Stadium has been in need of structural reinforcement. As Bahamians drive past the stadium, they can see that work is now in progress to complete these repairs in time for this major event. Understanding the importance of the games, the government is investing some $2.3 million in repairing our largest sporting facility. The 50th Carifta Track and Field Championships, the Golden Jubilee edition, is fully supported by this Davis-led administration. This major investments provide this country with another opportunity to prove just why we are the #1 destination for sports tourism. Thank God for Chester, because I don't have to mention him, he knows where he stands. Yeah, we are all holding up our leader. Country with another opportunity to prove just why we are the #1 destination of sports tourism, to showcase our top junior athletes and reclaim the championship's overall title. I am putting Jamaica and all other Caribbean countries on guard. Let them know that we are coming for our things. Madam Speaker, the ministry, by extension the government of the Bahamas, will continue to invest in all athletic programs in the country. We have provided financial support to the Carifta Local Organization Committee, who I must give credit to, as they have been able to generate even more funding from the corporate Bahamas to assist in the organizing and hosting of the Carifta. I take this time out to thank, in particular, Oak Tree Medical Center, Scotia Bank, the Movie Group, and Alive as major partners. And just recently, today, Price Waterhouse, Ernest & Young, and Port Development, who came on as silver sponsors. Many other companies, especially Bahamian-owned companies, have stepped it up and partnered with Carifta, and their investment into this and the investment into sports is vital for the event's success. my ministry has provided $2.9 million towards Carifta Championships to ensure that the event is the most successful edition in history. Yes. Madam Speaker, an event of this magnitude will be vital for the Bahamian economy, as many young athletes will be traveling to the Bahamas from around the Caribbean. The event will also be televised throughout the region, which will allow us to showcase our country as a leader in hosting major events and competitions, another marketing brand for our sports tourism. While our Carifta track and field team will be competing for the title at home, our Carifta swim team will be taking flight towards title number 8. Keeping with the tradition, my ministry and this caring government will once again provide a charter on Bahamas Air for the team to attend the games in Curacao. The swim team is looking to win their 5th consecutive Carifta team title, an unprecedented feat in the competition's history. Madam Speaker, the investment in Carifta is not only for the young athletes of today, but for the future of sports in the Bahamas. This year will be the start for the Olympics trials. As the Paris Olympics are only 1 year away, therefore, this year's Carifta will be even more important to our athletes, and these investments will give our athletes the best possible opportunity to succeed. Madam Speaker, as the organizers continue to prepare for Carifta, the athletes must also prepare themselves to compete in front of their fellow Bahamians. As part of their preparation, the trials this year are even more important than ever, as they are to combine the High School Nationals Track and Field Championships to create the High School National Championships and Carifta Trials. My ministry has provided some $400,000 towards this event, and this investment is to ensure that athletes from every island has an opportunity to come to New Providence and compete. The collaboration between my ministry, the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational and Training, the Bahamas Association of Athletic Associations, B3As, and the Carifta LOC Committee has been productive, and it's expected that this event will be an important competition for the athletes and an important trial run for the organizers to ensure Carifta Championships are as successful as possible. The Bahamian public have stepped it up to ensure that the High School National Championships and Carifta Trials are successful, as over 600 volunteers have already signed up to assist at this event. Madam Speaker, an estimated 3,400 athletes from all over the country will be competing in more than 10 sporting disciplines at the Bahama Games. This is the largest local sporting event in the country. This event coincides with the country's 50th anniversary and will be the sporting celebration of Bahamian excellence. This major investment by the government is to bridge the proverbial gap and provide platform, especially for our family island athletes. An investment of some $1.3 million has already been spent and made towards these games to ensure its successful revival. Madam Speaker, my ministry will continue to work closely with the Bahama Games Secretariat and all other stakeholders to ensure that the Games' success. Preparations are well underway. There is a buzz throughout the country, and it will intensify as the marketing and promotion of the event ramps up immediately after the Carifta Games. Madam Speaker, this year is a very busy year for sporting events. In order to host major events spoken of earlier, an investment in facilities upgrades is essential for success. My ministry is already in the process of improving various facilities in New Providence, Grand Bahama, and the Family Islands. In New Providence, work has already begun at the National Sports Authority facilities. The track surfaces at the old and new stadiums are being resurfaced and striped in order to be certified for the Carifta Championships. The upgrades for both tracks total some $830,000. The renovations to the Betty Kenning Kelly National Aquatic Center have already begun, as new heaters and coolers have been purchased. In addition, consultation with the Bahamas Aquatic Federation has led to further upgrades to the center. This investment in renovating total some $186,000. Madam Speaker, this is what it means to invest in a country. This is what it means to invest in the youth. The Davis Cooper-led administration, you hear that, Marco City, is doing just that, investing today for the future. As stated, the importance of facility upkeep is vital to the growth and development of all of our athletes, and my ministry will continue to make the investments. Refurbishment to the Kendall Isaac Gymnasium has commenced, and the refurbishment is about 90% to completion. A new scoreboard was also installed, which allows us to host major basketball events such as the FIBA qualifiers. As of today, the refurbishments total some $600,000. We are also planning to refurbish the seating at the gymnasium to improve the comfort and enjoyment of spectators. The Bankers Field has also been refurbished, dugouts has been repaired, initial work on the score room and score booth have begun, and the scoreboard is also to be replaced. Lighting for the facilities in the whole area are also being upgraded. Total investment in these upgrades to the Bankers Field is some $81,200. Madam Speaker, our sporting goal is to leave no Bahamian behind. And so Grand Bahama has also received upgrades to some of their facilities. There have been major upgrades to the track surface at the Grand Bahama Sporting Complex, which is now a Level 2 certified stadium, capable of hosting regional events. A new throwing cage was installed, the main grandstand and concession stands renovated, increasing the overall seating capacity. Thousands of dollars of track and field equipment was sent to Grand Bahama to allow Bahamians to train and compete. The overall upgrades total an estimate $250,000. Youth and adult softball is being played in the complex, and a recent introduction of youth flag football will allow even more Bahamians to utilize the complex. Youth athletes can access the complex free of charge. Madam Speaker, I am pleased to state that there was a variety of sporting events that took place over the last few months, ranging from school sports to international qualifiers. These investments made are also to build an equal playing field for all Bahamians. One program in particular was the 34th edition of the Father Marcian Peterson Basketball Invitational, which took place in December of last year. By all accounts, it was a tremendous success. Teams representing the Family Islands include schools from Andros, Harbor Island, and Abaco. Coaches, referees, parents, and the general public gave positive reviews on the first tournament that was held after the hiatus. The total investment made on this event was some $30,000. The tournament was organized and overseen by legendary coach James Clark, and the staff and the sports department were vital to the overall success of the event. My personal thanks goes out to Coach Clark and his team for putting on a successful event and bringing the Father Marcian Peterson Invitational back onto the sporting calendar. Madam Speaker, the country also hosted 4 of the top high school basketball teams from the United States. Hoop Fest, all-star teams from New Providence and Grand Bahama to partake, allowing our young Bahamians to showcase their talents against top competition and gain invaluable experience. The investment in this event was some $15,000. Madam Speaker, the 2022 North American, Central American, and Caribbean Championships were held at Grand Bahama Sporting Complex from August 9th to the 21st, and had 350 athletes from 27 countries to compete. Shawnee Miller-Ubo led the Bahamian charge with a gold medal performance during the 400 meters. The Team Bahamas also was able to secure 2 silver and 4 bronze medals at the championship. The government assisted in this event by investing some $862,000. And by the results of it, it shows that our investments are paying strong dividends. Madam Speaker, the official opening of the Andre Rogers Baseball Stadium coincided with the Caribbean Baseball Cup, which acted as a qualifier for the Central American and Caribbean Games for 2023 baseball competition. 5 Caribbean countries competed in a series of games where the Bahamas played against tough competition. Not only did the government of the Bahamas ensure that the stadium was open and ready and suitable for play, an additional $160,000 were granted to the Federation. This is another investment to secure the future of baseball, where our major leaguers, including Jazzrado Jazz Chisholm, can come home and play and train. And that is a major league certified stadium. Madam Speaker, the Frank Pancho Raming National Primary School Track and Field Championships will be held at the National Stadium May 24 to 26. This event will provide primary school students, athletes from around the country, an opportunity to showcase their speed, strength, and endurance. This is where our Olympians like Shawnee Miller, Rebo, Stevie Gardner, Devon Charlton, and Anthony Strong got their start. I am certain that the future Olympians' journey can be positively impacted by this event. The investment in these young athletes came to the form of some $300,000, and I know that it will be a great experience for all involved. Under the theme Awakening the Power of Sports, November 22 was celebrated as official reintroduction of Sports Bahamian Society. A variety of sporting events took place throughout the Bahamas, including basketball, beach volleyball, tournaments, aerobics class, fun run walk events. The goal of these events was to encourage the Bahamian public to come out and take part in physical activities at their own pace. The crowning jewel of the National Hall of Fame, which recognizes and celebrates accomplishments of Bahamian athletes and administrators who excelled in sports and continue to inspire young Bahamians to follow their dreams with hard work and determination. Our honorees for the class of 2022 included a record number of inductees highlighted by the Golden Girls of the 2000 Olympic Games. With the above-mentioned activities, our expenditure for the month of November was some $80,000. Madam Speaker, it is abundantly clear that our committed investment is paying dividends, not only as the highest levels of competition, but through the continual growth of participation of youth sports. It is important that we continue to invest in our future, and on the sporting front, we are ensuring that the future is bright for all athletes in the Bahamas. Under the theme Celebrating Ourselves, Culturally United, the Division of Cultural Affairs has worked diligently to chart a new way forward by creating a new economic model for culture and the creative industry. The programs, projects, and initiatives undertaken has shown how the Division of Culture, along with cultural industry, is an economic driver through the support of cultural artists and creatives. The division has 8 focus areas that assist cultural artists and creatives with tools needed to develop their skills and crafts while providing opportunities to perform, showcase their talents, and make money from their art. The government investment of over $3.3 million has impacted over 2,500 individuals, cultural artists, organizations, and companies, and have reached over 100 combined participants and spectators. Madam Speaker, through culture programs such as the E. Clement Battle Arts Festival and the National Junkanoo Development Program, the Division of Cultural Affairs strives to utilize Bahamian artistry as a symbol of unity. The E. Clement Bethel National Arts Festival, which is now in its 63rd year, is held in every major island and key. Over the years, the festival has grown steadily in participants' entries in the nationalistic endeavor to showcase their talents of the Bahamian people. The program comprised of competitions in music, dance, drama, visual arts, and for the first time, its own category, film. Experts in various disciplines adjudicate participants who enter the competition in their school, age, or community categories. Some $230,000 has been invested in this program. Madam Speaker, the National Junkanoo Development Program received an investment of some $2.6 million to date. That investment was spent through seed funding, supplies, and logistics preparations to facilities both junior and senior Junkanoos Parade in New Providence, Grand Bahama, Cat Island, Exuma, Eleuthera, North, Central Andres, Bimini, Acklands, Abaco, and due to the global rise in the cost of supplies, an additional $500,000 is needed to meet the demands of each island. Through the Division of Culture Outreach under the sub-theme Culture for Peace, the division has established rehabilitative projects at the Simpson Penn School for Boys and TAPS, which provide exposure for arts and alternative option for crime. The Division of Culture Affairs understands the importance of culture education plays on our society, and the Division of Culture Creative Arts School is the tool aimed to assist in achieving this. The Division of Culture Creative Arts School provides assistance and guidance to aspiring actors, musicians, dancers, filmmakers, playwrights, and creatives on the journey of fulfilling their professional goals. And it offers the opportunity for persons to be exposed to quality training in the creative arts through workshops in various cultural disciplines. Madam Speaker, the Division of Culture Creative Arts School also features a culture entrepreneurship program, which supports cultural micro businesses by providing financial, organizational, technical mentorship. To date, workshops have been held in music, dance, and film. Give me 5 minutes, please? Five and I'm done. To date, workshops have been held in music, dance, and film. Upcoming workshop will include training to theater, series, fashions, and film. The Culture in the Park, a mini community festival event, showcase crafty culinary, music, and dance artisans found in each local community while providing financial opportunities for those persons. To date, some $60,000 has been invested in this program, and it is intended to be held in every island since July 2022. It has been held in New Providence and Fort Charlotte, Nassau Village areas within Eleuthera, Central Andres, Long Island, being scheduled in the near future. Well, I know that. Yeah. I wrap up right now, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we must remember the dignity of all nations relies on their culture, and the Bahamas is no exception. We must also remember that without the people who create the culture, there is no country to promote. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture is happy and pleased to advise that the money was well spent and invested in our young people.
Thank you, Honorable Member. It's for the young people. For the young people. As many, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for St. Anne's.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. I note none of my other colleagues didn't check in with you, but earlier this morning you said you weren't feeling that well. No. Are you feeling better now?
I see why you're feeling.
You're the only one that cares. See why you're my favorite?
That's it.
They don't care. You get 10 for that.
We'll work on them, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to give my debate contribution on the mid-year budget, the supplemental budget, and I'm thankful for having 30 minutes. Madam Speaker, in the past, I've gotten up on this side of the House. This is the opposition side of the House. I know there's some backbenchers, but the opposition sits on this side. It's my job to oppose what the government puts forward, Madam Speaker. That may correct their course, or that may give them content to consider going forward. One of my first contributions in this honorable House, Madam Speaker, I had brought up the Naval Academy that is now receiving such great attention from the Honorable Minister Poe, and I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased that Oleg, yes, I'm very pleased, Madam Speaker, that it's being seen as another industry by the member from West Grand Bahama and Bimini. This last week, I was fortunate enough to attend a charter and yacht show that was held here in Nassau Harbor. I think the first, if not in recent years, the first ever. I understand that members from the future opposition side, Chester Cooper, the government side, Madam Speaker, the Deputy Prime Minister, Chester Cooper, was there. And I also understand that former stateswoman Loretta Butler Turner also was in attendance. But you had the young maritime cadets there. I met a young man by the name of Mr. Adderley, and I think that it's opening up great channels for them to not only contribute to the yachting industry here, but more importantly, the maritime industry around the world. So I'm really looking forward to the results. Those records being set by female and male graduates, Madam Speaker. But I'm going to say some things today that probably won't be received in the same manner that they've been given, because I'm going to give an opposition's contribution, Madam Speaker. It's typical of my fashion, maybe to surf the line, and I hear the local John F. Kennedy are already piping up over there. So I can imagine a voice note may follow this as it's done before. That's his prerogative. But Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I didn't know the PLPs was talking about me like that, Madam Speaker. I thought they had the people's business to take care of. Madam Speaker, I heard some of the things that the Prime Minister brought up this morning. I actually, truthfully, don't recall what they were right now. Nothing really blew me away. But when I wrote this down, I was at my breakfast, my dinner table, my lunch table, my dining table today, having, I think my wife, one of these days in the month, she makes me breakfast. I think I had a waffle. I had a waffle with scrambled eggs and hot dog. That's my youngest son's favorite. So I was fortunate to be in the company of my youngest son, and I got fed this morning. But I then sat down and wrote this out, and I'm just going to go through it now, Madam Speaker. The first thing that stuck out to me was what has this government done since last year? What has this government done since last year? Since we had their first supplemental budget debate, Madam Speaker, what has this government done since last year? They've held parties, they've distributed money, and they've flown away. While Bahamian people are struggling, this government has been holding parties, distributing money, and flying away. I'm being serious when I ask, what have they done? I considered giving my same debate contribution presentation from last year to date. I could have almost taken that off of my computer and gone over the same things, Madam Speaker, and not much had changed. The only parts I would have needed to change were the casualties, the persons who have innocently lost their lives on the streets. We still have casualties today, Madam Speaker, but they're not the same individuals. There are still unaddressed issues with the supplementary budget. There are unaddressed issues with social services. There are unaddressed issues with land use planning and land use policies. And there are also unaddressed issues with renewable energy targets. Madam Speaker, these are things that are plaguing the country, and these are things that I had in my debate contribution last year. I've just heard the member from Garden Hills go through what the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture is doing. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, renovations at Thomas A. Robinson Stadium, new tracks, opportunities for athletes, not only in New Providence and in Grand Bahama. State-of-the-art, this might have been the Prime Minister, it might have been a member from Garden Hills, state-of-the-art baseball stadium. But you look at social services, Madam Speaker, and you look at the amount of money that's been put aside for persons, allocations for children with special needs, and there's not even a dollar increase in the budget from last year to this year. And Madam Speaker, as a Rotarian, one of the local organizations that we participated with from time to time was the BAPD, which is the Bahamas Association for the Physically Disabled. That's where young persons with severe muscle growth disabilities go from a very young age so that they can have as much exposure to exercises and education that'll keep them as flexible as they could be. But once they turn 18, Madam Speaker, that's it. The Bahamas Association for the Physically Disabled no longer has them come to the facility. They no longer have exposure through any government program to any educational opportunities, Madam Speaker. Not $1 was added to the line item under this supplementary budget for allocation for children with special needs. We have to do better. Hopefully we can turn that around when the budget comes out in June, but we can't take persons that are going to BAPD for granted. It's only a few $100,000, Madam Speaker, that's allocated to these individuals. And it's not just the individuals at BAPD. It's got to be an array of individuals that are receiving the small portion of the money coming under this line item. Madam Speaker, I think it was roughly $300,000. It's not very much at all, Madam Speaker. In addition, Madam Speaker, we have the issues with land use planning that are impacting the country and land use policies. Under the Planning and Subdivision Act, this is something that I said last year, under the Planning and Subdivision Act, the law requires the production of a land use plan and land use policies. Now, when this was raised last year, I think the Honorable Minister, the member from Fort Charlotte, said, well, we're going to change the law. We're going to bring an amendment. A year's gone by, Madam Speaker, and that amendment has not come. I have also described in other opportunities to give contributions in this House how we kind of operate from a planning side with the cart in front of the horse. We don't have a plan that we're following, and until we have land use plans and the land use policies called for under the Act, we're going to continue to operate backwards, Madam Speaker. There was a renewable energy target. I had mentioned this last year. There was a renewable energy target where we would have dependency on 30% of renewable energy sources by 2030. Last year, the budget line item for renewable energy, Madam Speaker, would have been, I think, 500,000. Energy restoration and renewable energy, 2022, 2023, 500,000. Supplemental estimates for 2022, 2023, minus 250,000. Overall revised allocation for 2022, 2023, 250,000. So if you thought that this country was going in the direction of meeting its target commitment of 30% renewable energy by 2030, and you looked at a nominal amount of $500,000 to achieve that for the year, you probably were in complete disbelief like I was. Now to come and find out and go through this telephone book size document and then see that not only is it not been increased, but it's been decreased by 250,000. Madam Speaker, there are issues plaguing our country, and renewable energy is one of those. Madam Speaker, there are still unaddressed issues with social services, and as I said, land use planning, land use policies, renewable energy targets that are hurting our communities. So social services, if you have persons that are in need of school uniform allowance, that went away. It's not back in the budget. If you have family members that have special needs and you think maybe this will be the year that my 12-year-old child can attend some of the classes at one of the few facilities that offer lessons for children with special needs, but find out the government didn't care enough to increase the allocation for children with special needs, and sorry, it's just going to be another tough year. You see that childhood of that individual, that loved one in your family disappearing, Madam Speaker, and it's real. All right, it's tough, difficult enough to raise children, it's challenging enough, it's trying enough to raise children that don't have disability. But to have one child with disability, Madam Speaker, some families are even doing their best to care for households that have 2 children with disability in them. And to see, it must not be what's in the members' hearts, Madam Speaker, but for some reason, when Cabinet sits down and determines what they're going to be allocating money to, they have not yet determined that children with special needs are worth any more money today than they were 6 months, than they were 1 year ago. Madam Speaker, this renewable energy target is impacting and hurting our communities because until we can step away from the dependency on the crude oil that we're bringing in and have access to the natural energy sources that our oceans, that our exposure to the sun provide, our electricity bills are going to continue to be higher than they need to be. We made a commitment as a country to 30% dependency on renewables by 2030. We can only be seen as stepping away from that with the fact that we've gone from a $500,000 allocation to a $250,000 allocation. And as if that weren't enough, Madam Speaker, there are now serious issues that must be addressed on immigration, on the ease of doing business, on public prosecutions. Madam Speaker, on immigration, some say we have a crisis, some say we have irregular migration going on right now, but when you look at the overall immigration budget, despite the difficult circumstances, the budget has gone down by $40,000, Madam Speaker. I can't see how you're bringing in the troops, how you're going to address a national issue, and you reduce the budget that you had previously set when you didn't acknowledge there was a crisis, or when you didn't acknowledge that there was a migration issue, and when you didn't acknowledge that you're going to have an immigration task force. How do you reduce the budget? Now, if this budget was set a month ago, before the Prime Minister's national address that night on that stage with the dark shadow behind him, Madam Speaker, I could see. We didn't realize that we were going to prioritize this. But this budget has been presented in the House last week. It was moved by the Prime Minister of this great country today, and it was seconded by a great constituent of St. Anne's, the gentleman who represents South Andros, Mr. Lundy. Again, this is something like the budget item for children with special needs that has got to be addressed when we come back on the budget in June, and we'll have an hour's time, Madam Speaker. All members of Parliament have an hour's time then The Leader of the Opposition has 2 hours. The mover, if it's the Prime Minister, he seems to have as much time as he wants, Madam Speaker, but the seconder and ministers, I think, will have 2 hours. Madam Speaker, we have an immigration issue, we have an ease of doing business issue, and we have a public prosecutions issue.
The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Kalani.
I'm getting a report that the members being seen on TV, but no, there's no audio. Could that be checked, please?
Yeah, it's been consistent on.
Speaker, we received the same report, Madam Speaker. We've been checking periodically, but we are told that the audio is perfect. I think in some areas might be a feed difficulty, but generally here and in this general environment appears to be okay. But we'll continue to check, Madam Speaker. We'll continue to check to make sure. With television, here and other places, I've checked in Grand Bahama. I've checked in Grand Bahama. I've also checked here in New Providence to make sure.
Okay. I understand that Cable Bahamas is working perfectly, but the is it free to air? Free to air is where we have the issue.
So, Madam Speaker, we have these new serious issues, not the ones that I can repeat from last year, but these new serious issues, this immigration issue. With the immigration budget, there's an immigration task force, but the budget's gone down by 40,000. I don't know if we're incorporating a lot of prayer into this game plan, but when you reduce the resources, you generally reduce the results. Madam Speaker, we'll see what comes of it. The next budget's coming up in June. They know what they can do. The ease of doing business, Madam Speaker, as well as public prosecutions. Public prosecutions, Madam Speaker, we have a backlog of court cases. We have a backlog of court cases, Madam Speaker. We have persons that are out on bail, committing offenses while out on bail. We have persons that are being released while charged with murder because they're not being brought to court in a reasonable amount of time. But you look at the budget for public prosecutions, Madam Speaker, and originally it was approved at $3,279,627. There's a supplemental adjustment to it, Madam Speaker, of going down. The budget for public prosecutions has gone down by $519,898. So again, immigration, national issue, gone down by 40,000. Public prosecutions, national issue, gone down by over 500,000. I ask the question again, Madam Speaker, what have they done besides holding parties, distributing money, and flying away? Madam Speaker, for the love of democracy, the Senate has not met since it was the year 2022. In over 2 months, the Minister of Legal Affairs, the Minister of Economic Affairs have not been to work in Parliament. No bill passes through Parliament until it has been approved both by the upper chamber, the Senate, as well as the lower chamber, the House of Assembly. Members of the public must know that they have elected a government that is in idle. In Parliament, this government has entered 2023 not going forward, not going in reverse, just idling, Madam Speaker. Idling. We are in the boat with an idle government at the helm. Is it not pathetic to be idle, Madam Speaker? Is it not pathetic to lock up peaceful civilians? When CARICOM was in town, Lincoln Bain and a number of other Bahamians were taken into custody, their freedoms trampled, stuffed into a vehicle, stripped from the place they belonged. Is it not pathetic to fail at the ease of doing business index so much that you can't resolve an online portal glitch at the Register General's Department in over 6 months? First, the word on the street was that access to the online title documents went down because of a non-payment. Then the talk was it went down because there was a discovery of fraudulent recordings. Now the paper is saying that the AG is looking at a new civil registry platform. This sounds like another case of cut, cancel, and abuse, Madam Speaker.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Exum and Ragged Island.
The member in his profession would well know that the integrity of our financial system depends on the integrity of the registry. And I would much prefer if he speak facts and not what the word is on the street. We don't want to put that in the atmosphere, Madam Speaker. He knows better. So I'm asking him to please stick with the facts. If he has a question, he can pose that question during notices, and one of us will be sure to get back to him.
Thank you, honourable member.
Madam Speaker, if the Deputy Prime Minister would then tell me that this following statement is not a fact. The paper reported that the AG has said that the matter is beyond our control. The issues with the online title portal, Madam Speaker, are beyond our control. So if he wants to tell me that I shouldn't say anything negative, when you have the chief legal officer in this nation acknowledging that something is beyond his control, by association beyond the control of cabinet, and Madam Speaker, I don't think that he needs to worry about the few little things that I hear and say I've heard on the street. Beyond our control. Step aside. Other people ready to lead. Cut, cancel, and abuse. Cut, cancel, and abuse, Madam Speaker. Bread on the table for children is now being taxed under this administration. That's another case of cut, cancel, and abuse. Feminine hygiene products have been taxed. That's another case. That's another, everybody's chuckling over there because I bet you none of them chuckling buying any of those products. Feminine hygiene products, Madam Speaker, are taxed. Feminine hygiene products, Madam Speaker, are taxed. Another case of cut, cancel, and abuse. 50 years in, and we are witnessing an administration that taxes women and children. 50 years in, and we are witnessing islands still without a water supply. 50 years in, and islands that have water supply are living like the well run dry. There's constant disruptions in Central and South Eleuthera. Our school even had to close, Madam Speaker, because they had no water supply. I watched a recent video on social media where a grown, bald-headed man was complaining because he was in Eleuthera and had to bathe in a 5-gallon jug. Now, Madam Speaker, I don't know how this bald head was going to squeeze through the nozzle of that 5-gallon bottle so he could bathe in it, but I expect he was forced to have a cowboy bath or a bush shower. That's where you get the bag of water, the plastic bag of water, poke a few holes, and you dance underneath it, Madam Speaker, to try to get all the corners and curves of your body. Madam Speaker, this foolishness has to stop. The parties and frequent trips have to stop. The abuse of democracy. No bill is passed in Parliament in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas in January or in February. No bill. We debated the midwives and nurses bill. That was the only one. I asked my colleagues in the Senate, how did your debate go on that? And they said we haven't met since before the new year. And I realized that bill hasn't even come back to be passed here, Madam Speaker. But the foolishness has to stop. The parties, the frequent trips have to stop. The abuse of democracy has to stop.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Tall Pines.
Madam Speaker, point of order. The member for Science is misleading this House and the Bahamian people. The Nurses and Midwives Bill is at the committee stage. There's 2 or 3 potential amendments that are being discussed.
How is that misleading?
And because it's in the committee stage, it's not over to the other place. It's still here. No, but you said no bill. Second of all, the Mental Health Act is in play. It was passed, the bill was passed in this House. It went to the upper chamber, it was passed. The bill is enacted and is about to go into force. So your information is incorrect.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Madam Speaker, I didn't say anything about the Mental Health Act. The Senate has not met this year, Madam Speaker. It's been 2 months, Madam Speaker. I can understand there should be sensitivity over there, Madam Speaker. This is not meant to compliment them, Madam Speaker, and it goes to what I'm about to say. The comfortability of this administration to cruise idly has to stop. The pathetic arrests of citizens' civil liberties has to stop. The pathetic mismanagement of our gains in the ease of doing business has to stop. The pathetic tax on women and children has to stop. Madam Speaker, it is time for the Davis-Cooper administration to stop. This mid-year budget is going to carry them to the 2023 budget due in less than 6 months. When that budget comes, that will be the midway point in their administration. If they don't move from cancel, cut, and abuse, if they don't move from drifting and idle, the public will stop them at the next election. That's a fact. I'm not being critical, Madam Speaker. I'm being fair. Freetown wasn't here earlier on when I declared that I'll be doing my job, and that is providing an opposition point of view. I'm not flattering them. I'm not taking all the Kool-Aid off the budget meat shelf. I'm not PLP all the way. I'm not PLP anyway, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, I'm being fair. I'm being fair to this government. I'm being fair to the people. After all, Madam Speaker, we are one country, our legacy, and our future. And Madam Speaker, I was going to conclude right there, but I mean, I can't realize that the front bench didn't understand why I turned around to Leslia Miller Bryce, the ambassador, the one that stood out in Rawson Square and announced to our nation that for this 50th anniversary, this Jubilee anniversary, that our theme for the year was going to be our legacy, one country, our legacy, our future. There's nothing funny about where we are, Madam Speaker. My theme is one country, our legacy, our future. And Madam Speaker, my opinion is that the country deserves more. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. That's my contribution.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Asmini? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Carmichael.
He say you lose money, man. But you lose money from that. Good. Don't knock nobody. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Speaker, today as I had my morning devotions, I began to reflect on that old childhood carol. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And I stand here today, Madam Speaker, and it is still at my focus and on my mind. This is indeed another day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad. Madam Speaker, before moving into the substance of my remarks, I wish to once again thank the Honorable Prime Minister for the confidence he continues to place in me as a member of his cabinet. To my cabinet, parliamentary colleagues and Carmichael team, I say thank you for your support and your counsel. Madam Speaker, whilst I am deeply committed to public service and national life, my public work is only possible because of the support of my family, my dear and loving wife, Clara, my sons, my mother, my prayer warrior, my father-in-law, Frederick Chicken Taylor, and indeed my entire family. Madam Speaker, as I listened to the honorable member for Golden Gates earlier today, as she thanked her cabinet colleagues and parliamentary colleagues for the support they have given to her, Madam Speaker, I thought it most appropriate that I do the same. We are one team, one people, one government. Madam Speaker, I want to say that all of the wheels on this side are turning. I want to, for example, Madam Speaker, commend the Honorable Minister of Works, Alfred Sayers, for the paving of Gladstone Road. Madam Speaker, let me say, he paved Gladstone Road as an educator. I've never seen a road paved with minimal disruption, and I think we ought to commend him for it, Madam Speaker. I wish also, Madam Speaker, to commend the Honorable Minister of Sports, and of course, for the work he's doing in sports, in helping those who are athletically inclined. And of course, I wish to indicate that I've been a continuous and supporter of the Hugh Campbell basketball tournament for the last 40 years. Madam Speaker, I wish to commend and congratulate the champions, the team from Sunland of Grand Bahama. They played with military precision. And of course, to my alma mater, C.I. Gibson Rattlers, we're coming back next year. Oh, yeah. And I think, Madam Speaker, it's important for us, all of us, to continue to inspire and uphold these young men who give all of what they have. And I would challenge all of us in this place that their sporting careers ought not to stop there with the Hugh Campbell. I've had a conversation with the Minister of Sports, and I believe, Madam Speaker, it is important for all of us to ensure that these young men, and you look at the talents that they have, and not just in basketball, across the sporting arena, and that we give all of them an opportunity to develop to their fullest potential even more. Madam Speaker, in turn, and I wish to convey my condolences. In the Carmichael constituency, Madam Speaker, we are averaging about 5 deaths per week. And Madam Speaker, you know, my Saturdays, like Fred Mitchell and the others, have become occupied with many funerals. Madam Speaker, I wish to first of all convey my deepest condolences to Pastor Clifford Stubbs and his family. Pastor Stubbs passed away, was buried this week. You have a number of children and family who are part of the law enforcement family, and I attended that funeral. As I want Ms. Stubbs to know that our prayers are with her. Miss Patricia Stubbs Major, a classmate of mine from R.M. Bailey. I attended the funeral on Saturday as well. Want her husband and the family and everyone to know that she has our support. They have our support. And of course, Miss Fisher, on the death of her husband, our Carmichael constituent, faithful family of that constituency. Madam Speaker, I wish to also acknowledge the passing of a member of my personal detail, Superintendent Goran Bethel, an officer and a gentleman. He has served me with distinction. He has served this country with distinction, Madam Speaker, and I wish to acknowledge his family and the work he has done. And I hope, Madam Speaker, but I know he's rested in peace. Amen? Amen. Madam Speaker, it is indeed a privilege, of course, for me to rise again on behalf of the wonderful people of Carmichael to make this mid-year budget contribution and to support the passage of the Public Finance Management Bill and the Public Procurement Bill. At the outset, Madam Speaker, I must say that I am proud that the passage of these two bills represents another error corrected and another promise fulfilled. Madam Speaker, members may recall that the speech from the throne delivered in October 2021 noted that this government would amend the Procurement Act to strengthen provisions of Bahamian participation in government procurement at all levels, and the Public Financial Management Act to ensure full compliance with all existing legislation. Today, we make good on that promise. Madam Speaker, over the course of the debate of these bills, we have heard, and no doubt we will hear, various claims from members opposite, which will attempt to rewrite history. Claims about transparency and accountability. To all this, I say, Madam Speaker, check the records. The reasons for these amendments are simple. The laws as passed by the Minister administration, supported by the leader of the opposition, his cabinet colleague, cannot function. It never functioned, Madam Speaker. When the leader of the opposition speaks, one often gets the impression that he was not a member of the Minister administration. But let me remind him of Article 72(1) of the Constitution. There shall be a cabinet of the Bahamas, which shall have the general direction and control of the government and shall be collectively responsible thereof to the Parliament. Collective responsibility. Madam Speaker, this doctrine is a fundamental pillar of our constitutional law. It is therefore impossible for the leader of the opposition to divorce himself from the decisions he supported while he sat as a member of the Minister's cabinet. One such decision are the passing of these two acts that we must now fix so that they are workable, Madam Speaker. The Minister's administration passed the Public Procurement Act, the Public Debt Management Act, and the Public Financial Management Act in March of 2021. What is most interesting, Madam Speaker, is whilst campaigning on the transparency, they didn't pass the Procurement Act in 2017, they didn't pass it in 2018, they didn't pass it in 2019, and they didn't pass it in 2020. No. During those years, no bid contracts were being issued. Hundreds of thousands in luxury furnitures were being purchased. Madam Speaker, what is even more cynical is when the Minister's administration passed the Public Procurement Act, they signed an appointed day notice for September 2021. Why? Why, Madam Speaker? They didn't pass it in 2017, 2018, 2019, or 2020. And when they finally passed it, they delayed it to September of 2021. Now, what happened in September 21? Is this why elections were called early? With all the talk of transparency and their Procurement Act, why did they fail to operate under it? Madam Speaker, talk is cheap. The bills being presented today are necessary and represent real, achievable progress. And I commend the Honorable Prime Minister in his capacity as the Minister of Finance. Madam Speaker, before updating the House on the Ministry of Labor and Immigration, I wish to state that I'm so inspired by the level of commitment and dedication of the hardworking senior management team and staff at the ministry. These workers are committed to excellence, and each day they excel in their various professions. Madam Speaker, over the past 17 months, we have witnessed a great deal of public discussion, discourse, and even protests covering issues related to labor and immigration. We are aware of the challenges which we face. However, the Ministry of Labor and Immigration is up to the task. Madam Speaker, I am proud to state that the departments under my portfolio, namely the Department of Labor, the National Tripartite Council, the National Training Agency, and the Department of Immigration, have all been working diligently to produce results. The hard-working teams at the Ministry of Labor and Immigration have provided avenues for employment and the unemployed, with the recommendation of the NTC, increased minimum wage from $210 to $260 per week, offered 4 cohorts of soft skills training in various disciplines, impacting 253 persons throughout New Providence. The Department of Immigration has maintained our sovereignty by ensuring enforcement of our immigration laws. Madam Speaker, the team at the Ministry of Labor and Immigration is working, and I now wish to highlight just some of our accomplishments. First of all, the Department of Labor, our job fairs. On the 7th of May 2022, the department launched an initiative dubbed Labor on the Blocks 2.0, wherein a series of jobs fairs would be held in New Providence and other family islands. From June, Madam Speaker, 2022 to date, successful job fairs have been held in New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Abaco. In addition to the massive job fairs held at Anatole Rogers, this is Labor on the Blocks, we also held Labor in the Schools 2.0. Madam Speaker, let me just put a word in here that coming this Saturday in the Carmichael constituency, there will be a job fair on the Flamingo Gardens Park starting at 9 a.m. I'm inviting all the constituents of Carmichael and the surrounding areas to come out, bring your resume, come dressed, prepared, and of course, as we've experienced in a number of these job fairs, persons are hired on the spot. Madam Speaker, let me just indicate some of the confirmed employees who will be there. Fusion, Cisco, Commonwealth Brewery, Blue Lagoon, FML, SuperValue, Island Luck, John Bull, Sunshine Auto, Albany Auto Resort, Diamonds International, Fidelity Bank, Sandals, Exoma and Nassau, Bahamas Immigration, of course, MSC, Ocean Key, Sapadilla Restaurant, Family Guardian, AML, Bahamas Development Bank, Island Site, Disney, Blackbeard's Rumkey Factory, the National Training Agency, the Lowell Mortimer Institute, Cybertech, and of course, BTVI. I encourage all persons, young persons, to come out and come ready to be employed. Madam Speaker, I am proud to advise this honorable House that the next massive job fair, as I indicated, would be held in my constituency. And of course, let me just put a plug on that in terms of where it'll be next. I'll wait for the Member of Parliament to give that up. Madam Speaker, let me talk about, just for a moment, international travel and affiliations. The government of the Bahamas continues to lead our region in international matters when it comes to the International Labour Organization and Employment Industrial Relations. The Department of Labor International Labour Unit, in collaboration with the NTC, held a symposium on the 1st of December. Madam Speaker, it's very successful as we look to ratify Conventions 159 in respect to the National Child Labour Policy. Madam Speaker, we've also seen an increase in communications in the department. Madam Speaker, as I indicated, we've also started Labor on the Campus, and I wish to commend and thank the Minister of Education for allowing us to go into the schools to ensure that our young people, persons, ladies and gentlemen, are fully equipped with training to meet the job market. Madam Speaker, members are advised that the first Labor on the Campus Career Fair was held on the 26th of January at the Government High School, and the second one was held at R.M. Bailey on the 17th of February. Both events, Madam Speaker, were deemed extremely successful, and other fairs are planned for New Providence, Grand Bahama, and several of our family islands. Again, I thank you, Honorable Minister of Education. I wish to advise this Honorable House, Madam Speaker, that the Department of Labor has also relocated to new premises in Georgetown, Exoma, serving the citizens and residents of Exoma with excellent excitement and vigor. I also wish to advise that the Department of Labor is expected to open a new sub-office in 8 Mile Rock, Grand Bahama in May 2023, and a sub-office in North Andros in June of 2023. Madam Speaker, because of the success of both Labor on the Blocks and Labor on the Campus, plans are now underway for events in other islands, Grand Bahama and Abaco included. In respect to the National Tripartite Council, Madam Speaker, the Council has been very active over the past few months in the execution of its duties and responsibilities as outlined in the National Tripartite Act of 2015. I wish to publicly thank Chairman Martin and the entire Executive Council for doing a great job in keeping the spirit and intent of the ILO alive in the Bahamas. Madam Speaker, as I've indicated, we have introduced a national minimum wage increase Madam Speaker, and we're moving very quickly moving towards a livable wage. The work, Madam Speaker, is well underway in respect to this increase in a livable wage. And so, Madam Speaker, there will be widespread public dialogue, and I would wish for all right-thinking Bahamians to become involved and ensure that your voice is heard. Madam Speaker, in respect to the National Training Agency, the agency is charged with implementing workforce vocational training in accordance with our national policies and industry demands to increase the capacity of individuals to participate effectively in the workforce. Madam Speaker, since September 2021, the National Training Agency has conducted 4 cohorts of training, 2 in the Providence and 2 in Grand Bahama, which has impacted the lives of some 253 persons. Madam Speaker, in the past year, the agency has expanded its trainings to the Family Islands. For the first time, a workshop readiness initiative was held on the island of Exuma. Madam Speaker, I wish to commend the chairman, Ms. Agatha Marcel, and certainly the director, Terry Murray, for the work that they're doing. Madam Speaker, just let me say that oftentimes when I speak in this place, I say that we will be measured by our work and not by our speeches. And Madam Speaker, because of the work of the National Training Agency, the Department of Labor, and the Ministry of Labor, more than 3,000 young persons have been employed today. Madam Speaker, I now turn to the Department of Immigration. In our blueprint for change, this David-led administration committed to introducing immigration reforms to protect the sovereignty of the Bahamas. Over the past months, there has been significant discourse in the public domain concerning immigration. Increasingly, much of it surrounds migrants from the Republic of Haiti and the consequences of the declining conditions on the ground in Haiti. Concerns surrounding Haiti were a high agenda item in the CARICOM heads of government headed by the Honorable Prime Minister as chairman of CARICOM. Madam Speaker, on Monday, I, along with the member of Freetown and the Minister of National Security, represented the Prime Minister and this government at a high-level meeting in Haiti to discuss the security issues facing Haiti with politicians and other officials. The meetings, Madam Speaker, were very successful, and all participants left with a fuller understanding of the complexities of the issues of Haiti. Whilst we continue to work with our regional and other partners to determine the path forward relative to improving the security and other issues in Haiti, as a small island state with limited resources, our response is and must continue to be to ensure that economic migrants and unlawful entrants are expeditiously processed and deported from the Bahamas. This policy, Madam Speaker, is consistent with the policies and procedures adopted by neighboring countries who are far better resourced to provide economic and other humanitarian assistance to the Republic of Haiti and, of course, Cuba. Madam Speaker, earlier this year, I advised the public that the department would be adopting a zero-tolerance approach to the enforcement of all regulations concerning work permits. This includes persons who obtain work permits, then freelance or work on other islands, or have jobs which are different from those for which they obtained the permit. Madam Speaker, last month, the Department of Immigration launched Operation Restore, a comprehensive enforcement regime for the island of Abaco. And Madam Speaker, let me indicate that this Operation Restore is just one component of the government's Operation Secure. And Madam Speaker, this is the national policy framework for the government dealing with immigration matters. And Madam Speaker, just let me indicate to members of the public, it's on the government's website, and all right-thinking Bahamians ought to have a look at it and add to it or give us constructive criticism to it. Madam Speaker, there are 3 broad pillars to the government's policy as it relates to immigration. The first policy, or the first pillar, is the importance of enforcing immigration laws in unregulated and unlawful communities. The second pillar focuses on protecting the country's borders. And the third pillar of the framework emphasizes the importance of international cooperation. Three broad pillars, Madam Speaker. Operation Restore, as I indicated, for the island of Abaco, is a joint effort of the Department of Immigration, the Royal Bahamas Police Force, and the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, which commenced on the 13th of February and continues. As a result of this operation, a number of persons have been taken into immigration custody for being undocumented, working outside the scope of their work permit, overstaying, and working on Abaco with a permit issued for New Providence. And so I want to indicate to the members of Parliament for North Abaco and Central and South Abaco that we heard your cry. We are a government not of speeches, but of action. And I wish to thank the Honorable Minister of National Security and all of the law enforcement partners for the role that they are playing. Madam Speaker, as a result of this operation, a number of persons have been taken into custody for various immigration offenses. And I now indicate the numbers. On the 13th of February, 62 Haitian nationals were taken into custody. On the 14th of February, 64 Haitian nationals were taken into custody. On the 15th of February, 15 irregular Haitian nationals were taken into custody. On the 16th of February, 11 Haitian nationals were taken into custody. On the 17th of February, 24 irregular Haitian nationals were taken into custody. On the 19th of February, 33 irregular Haitian nationals were taken into custody, along with 3 Jamaican nationals. And on the 28th of February, 30 irregular Haitian nationals were taken into custody, along with 3 Jamaican nationals. Madam Speaker, in that short period, some 245 persons were taken into custody, 239 Haitian nationals and 6 Jamaican nationals. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Prime Minister has directed that we must be fair and we must be firm, unwavering and relentless in our actions, and we intend to continue with the operation. Madam Speaker, a number of matters have been placed before the courts, resulting in fines and in some instances, custodial sentences. As of the 28th, there have been 30 convictions for matters related to Operation Restore. The operation remains ongoing, and the Department of Immigration will provide further updates to the public on our progress. Madam Speaker, I wish to also bring to the House's attention 2 interceptions by the U.S. Coast Guard. On the 15th of February, the U.S. Coast Guard intercepted a freighter in the area of the Old Bahama Channel. The vessel was registered and licensed as a Bahamian vessel up to 2017. The vessel was found to have some 312 Haitian nationals who were attempting to smuggle into the USA, along with 2 Bahamians and 2 Dominican nationals. On the 22nd of February 2022, the U.S. Coast Guard intercepted a 36-feet vessel which departed from Freeport, Grand Bahama, en route to South Florida, with some 78 irregular migrants on board. The groups comprised 74 Haitian nationals, 1 Dominican national, and 3 Bahamian nationals. In both instances, Madam Speaker, the U.S. Coast Guard provided valuable assistance in carrying out a direct repatriation of the 386 Haitian nationals to Haiti. Madam Speaker, it must be emphasized that the operation in Abaco and our ongoing repatriation exercises are costly exercises for the government. The overall cost for 2022, as I've said, is $1.5 million. As of the 28th of February, with some repatriation of 1,024, plus the others, it was 326,000 and counting. Madam Speaker, I close by expressing my sincere appreciation to all the staff of the Ministry of Labor and Immigration for the yeoman's work that they are doing on a daily basis on behalf of a grateful nation. But Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I think that the member of Parliament for St. Anne's indicated there was a decrease when in fact the Honorable Minister of National Security, member for Freetown has pointed out that there's been a significant increase. So I would ask them to, by $500,000, just check your numbers, please. By my budget, the immigration budget. Madam Speaker, I wish to also thank our law enforcement partners, and in particular, the team in Abaco for their hard work and commitment. And I ask all right-thinking and Christian Bahamians to continue to pray for our law enforcement officers as they continue to do their job. Madam Speaker, it would be remiss of me if I neglect to thank the Honorable Attorney General, his assistant, State Minister for Baintown, Centerville, and the fine team at the Office of the Attorney General, who have moved the court to lift the injunction, Madam Speaker, and also are in the process of redrafting a number of bills, including the Commercial Enterprises Act. And I see the Honorable Attorney General in the chamber. So, Madam Speaker, I wish to commend him for the work that they're doing in there. Madam Speaker, we must also remind the public that for our immigration policies to be successful, the public must partner with the department by doing their part. The Department of Immigration will continue to partner with the Bahamian people in the struggle with irregular migration. However, it must be done in a responsible, genuine manner, and there is no place in this country for xenophobia and making reports that have no reasonable basis. I reiterate the department's hotlines, 604-0172 and 604-0196. Madam Speaker, as I close, I say that we here in the Progressive Liberal Party remain committed to doing the work required to protect our borders and preserve the Bahamas for Bahamians. May our God continue to bless this great Commonwealth.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Marathon.
Madam Speaker, good evening. I rise on behalf of the great people of Marathon, and I would want to say a pleasant good evening to all my parliamentary colleagues, also those on the opposition side. Pleasant good afternoon. That's nice of you. Madam Speaker, today, as I rise, I deemed an honor to contribute to the mid-year budget debate on the government achievement and strategic direction for our country in the coming year. Also, Madam Speaker, I join with thousands, I'm sure, both in here and in the Bahamas, all over the Bahamas, and across this nation to congratulate the Honorable Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Davis, for presenting yet another successful year budget. Madam Speaker, I am certainly proud to say, and I'm very thankful to the Minister for the Ministry of Education, the Honorable Glenys Hannah Martin, and your fine principal and students at R.M. Bailey School for allowing me and my team to go in there and give them a whole Valentine's treat. That's the best Valentine I had in my life. Let me say that. Not only was the kids treated food, all sorts of food, but they were given tablets. Also, they got a very good talk. And they also look forward for this being annually. They're asking me to make this annually. And certainly, I would want my Marathon residents to know Porkfish Street. I want to thank the minister I don't see here, for the Ministry of Works, Mr. Alfred Sayers, the member for Fort Charlotte. He was grateful. Porkfish Street is the street that I grew up on, and it's now being paved. But the residents are happy. The road was terrible, but it's being paved. I thank him and I thank the team for that. So I feel good now to go to my mother's house. I hide a lot of times. I sneak at night because I know the residents, were upset, but now they're so happy. So I go in the day, go in the evening, and in the night. And I shake everybody's hand. So, Madam Speaker, I am proud to say that urban renewal continue to help empower and transform the lives of thousands of our citizens. Let it be known, Madam Speaker, that urban renewal is not a faceless entity that mechanically established policies. But urban renewal is a body of dedicated staff whose talents and hard work are the driving force behind the urban renewal efforts. They do so, Madam Speaker, with empathy, integrity, commitment, and our own people are the center of our operation. A completely fitting and logical people-centered setup to serve a people-centered cause. Madam Speaker, during my 2022-2023 budget presentation, I outlined several programs that urban renewal had sought to undertake. And today, I would like to highlight the progress of some of those programs. Madam Speaker, in our quest to foster deeper ties with our community leaders, I am pleased to announce that all of the urban centers have established the Citizens Advisory Committees. Madam Speaker, you may ask, who are these committees? These committees will serve in an advisory capacity to the various urban renewal centers as a work group of community members who are passionate about the well-being of their whole community, and they understand the importance of being engaged and addressing issues and in advising us on programs that would help the quality of life within their own neighborhoods. Madam Speaker, I am pleased to announce that 17 students from Urban Renewal enrolled successfully and completed a recent University of the West Indies Entrepreneurship and Small Business Management pilot 5 weeks program. And I feel good to say that the students hailed from New Providence, Grand Bahama, Abaco, Bimini, Andros, Eleuthera, Exuma, Cat Island, and Long Island. Madam Speaker, I wish for you to know that students will be presented with their certificates of completion during a ceremony at the UWI Bahamas campus next week. In advance, Madam Speaker, I would like to say congratulations to our students in advance.
Madam Speaker.
The chair.
Receive reports that we're losing audio. Okay. So could I ask for a 15-minute break, Madam Speaker, while we determine what's going on, Madam Speaker?
Thank you, Honorable Member. The House, thank you, Honorable Members. The House now suspends for 15 minutes.
Let's double check this. Could we find out who's that's Kim Bahama? No, there are some places there.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Finance.
I had a point of order, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to
Yes.
the member for Carmichael's presentation. Yes, man. You will recall that the member from Freetown must have put some information. No, Mr. Deputy Speaker, he put on record that the information I gave to this honorable House was not correct. I have the right to say that.
Yes.
We suspended.
Yes,
We
okay.
suspended. We're not in the middle of the
Okay,
speech.
and let me, Sinance, I will give my rulings. The honorable member for Marathon will continue after, then you can.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I would like
Deputy
to in
Speaker's
advance
ruling.
say congratulations
He's in charge.
to the students who will be graduating next week from the University of the West Indies. Zoe Cooper, Abaco, Demeron Rose, Acklands, LaQuaya McKenzie, Cat Island, Marcus Thanker Jr., Cat Island, Marvinette Adley, Exuma, Glacy Brooks, Grand Bahama, Janae Martin, Grand Bahama, Roger Tate, Grand Bahama, Nicholas Cartwright, Long Island, Grace Gator, North Andros, Lataya Baker, New Providence, Justice Curry, New Providence, Rihanna Ferguson, New Providence, Shamia Forbes, New Providence, Janae Fritz, New Providence, Jazara Johnson, New Providence, Javane Sonatas, New Providence. So, Deputy Speaker, the students can look forward to getting this next week, successful completion from the University of the West Indies. So what we're doing, we're birthing young entrepreneurs. We're beginning with the end in mind. Also, Deputy Speaker, I would wish to commend the 15 young Bahamians. It started off as 20, but it ended up at 15, who have answered the clarion call to enroll in the LJM Maritime Academy ratings program. The Academy offers a 4 weeks rating program, and of course, the students had the option of studying deck or engine. Those students were enrolled from November 2022. The graduation is forthcoming. And certainly, Deputy Speaker, I never looked at maritime as I did now, as I did then. And these students, we want them to know that nearly 1,500 ships around the world carrying the flag of the Bahamas, these students upon graduation would have that opportunity to ride and work on one of those ships. The job opportunities in maritime is endless. I wondered why I never thought about maritime when I was in the conversation with Dr. Brenda Clare. She's the president of that school. She was there for umpteen years. She's doing a tremendous job, and I would like to congratulate her. They can be ordinary seaman, able seaman, deck utility, oiler, wiper, general steward. They can be sandblasters, draft surveyor, ship agents, engineers. It can go on and on. And so we want the Bahamian people to know that the investment that the government is doing for these youngsters is not in vain. Also, Deputy Speaker, the Urban Renewal Relief Task Force was established to prevent and intervene in cases of domestic violence, to provide counseling for families of sexual abuse, physical abuse, murdered victims. And among the collaborative approaches, this Relief Task Force has undertaken many initiatives over the months. They have done so much. Under the remit of Dr. Eric Fox and his team, they have visited, I would say, more than 15 families, because you know that every day we hear of a murder every other day, and they were working relentlessly in visiting the families throughout New Providence. They organized and partnered with families to conduct more than 9 candlelight vigils. You see it as simple, but the family see that as great when they know that somebody cares. And also the great member for West End and Bimini, the Honorable Obadiah Wilchcombe, he personally went to the vigil, the recent one, Condrick Lowe and Haranique McPhee in Camp Road. And we've seen the minister, I saw tears the first time I saw him cry, and I said, I know he always had a heart, but I really saw it then. He was touched by it. And so we also conducted, the task force conduct anger management and conflict resolutions and lectures in the school daily. They go into schools daily. C.V. Battle, C.R. Walker, Anatole Rogers, C.I. Gibson, Senior High, L.W. Young, Government High, C.C. Sweeting, C.H. Reeves, and I can tell you the kids love that team. Eric Fox is doing a wonderful job. He's very skilled when it comes with counseling and gangs and anger management. He's a good man. Our Urban Renewal Task Force team will also continue to reach out to the young and the not so young, because he's also responsible with his team going door to door in the community, reaching out to residents, those who are hurting, those who would not generally come out their door and look for help. We take help to them. And the messaging that he's giving those people is that there is nothing wrong with saying no to drugs. There is nothing wrong with reporting sexual abuse. There is nothing wrong with speaking openly about domestic violence. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with doing what is right, even if it means standing alone. Deputy Speaker, I'm also proud to announce that Urban Renewal will be launching its GED program in collaboration with the Ministry of Education. And this one touched my heart, because when the GED program was done before, it was done with adults who didn't graduate, and they had that opportunity. This time, we tend to reach out to the young ladies at PACE, those ladies who have caught themselves in unfortunate situations with having a baby at a young age, so they'll be able to be in a private setting and be able to complete and have that pride and not feel embarrassed of having to go back to the high schools. So I thank the Minister, Glenys Hannah Martin. I thank her so much for her blessings on this. And so we're looking to do some great things with PACE. The Urban Renewal, Deputy Speaker, the Second Chance Program. In keeping with the government's blueprint for change, a committee has been formed to create this framework of the Second Chance Program. And this committee is led by our Assistant Chairman, Bishop Arthur Evans, and he is assisted by Eric Fox and a community activist, Mr. Denver Pratt. The program right now is in its infancy stage, with plans being formed by our able committee members, with the mindset that participants in the Second Chance Program view that an individual should not be marginalized in society based on their past transgressions, and what we call it in layman term, past convictions and past things that they've done that was against the law. But this program will afford them an opportunity to showcase their better qualities, thus presenting a better version of themselves. And of course, Deputy Speaker, we have a number of signature programs that went exceptionally well. We had our summer program that went well, over 500 plus students in all the family of islands that we conducted. It was a 2 weeks program. The kids also was involved in art and craft, dance, drama, junkanoo, basketball, swimming, every sport that you can think of. When it ended, they didn't want it to end. I didn't want it to end too. I had a wonderful time. Also, our sporting program, Deputy Speaker, our tennis, swimming, basketball, all of that has been going well. We decided to revamp it by allowing those living in their areas, in their inner city. We're taking the sports to them rather than busing them and taking them to the sports center. We have the coaches coming to them in the individual areas so that they can quickly go back home to do their homework or whatever it is and not take them out of their areas where they live. Deputy Speaker, the Small Homes Repair Program seeks to improve the living conditions of citizens of the Bahamas through the provision of basic infrastructure for comfortable living. Thus far, many deserving individuals and families have benefited from this program, and many are still awaiting. I am pleased to report, as of February 2023, Urban Renewal have repaired an estimated 273 homes, and that will be in New Providence, Grand Bahama, Bimini, Cat Island, and Exuma. And they've just went into Andros to process, and Acklands is next week. And there are now on the table 87 applications that are being processed and waiting to be assigned to contractors. We are cognizant that not every program may be implemented, and new programs may need to be developed and added over time because of the need in the community. With this in mind, we have added one that's the new initiative of the climate change after school program, where we believe that several young people taking particular interest in the impacts of climate change on their future. After school is a prime opportunity to support those interests with environmental focused learning and community action opportunities. So very shortly, Urban Renewal, working in concert with local environmentalists, will establish a 6-week environmental science and climate change after-school program to learn about the air, water, soil quality through fieldwork in the community. Taking a bite out of crime, Deputy Speaker. My government is serious about the vexing issue of crime and antisocial behavior. Initially, when the framers of Urban Renewal created the program 21 years ago, they had 5 clear objectives in their minds that was written. 1, to prevent crime and reduce the fear of crime in the community. 2, to identify and tackle the main causes of social conditions which promotes the occurrence of crime and deviant behavior. 3, to examine and improve the quality of life and the social and environmental conditions of high crime communities. 4, to involve the community in problem solving and to empower citizens to play an active role in their communities. Lastly, but not least, to identify the problems facing our young people and to engage them in positive activities and programs geared toward making them productive citizens. This is what was in the mind of the framers at the initial stage of the implementation of the Urban Renewal Program. And for that reason, that is why every program that we initiate, it is based with this in mind, not just ad hoc programs, but programs that we knew worked in the past and those that work today. Deputy Speaker, moving forward, Urban Renewal is working in concert with the Grand Bahama Police Force, as always, to develop and will employ a number of crime prevention strategies. I want to say a very thank you to the Minister of National Security for he's always actively involved with us when it comes to the crime prevention methods and issues. Also, I'm also grateful to the Commissioner of Police, who we keep in contact with on a daily basis, and he's briefed on what is going on in the communities. And Deputy Speaker, it has been my experience during the early inception of the Urban Renewal Program that the demolition of abandoned buildings in several communities was a contributing factor in the reduction of crime and community decay. Just yesterday, Deputy Speaker, Urban Renewal, acting on intelligence from the Grand Bahama Police Force, the officers attached to the Urban Renewal, demolished a wooden structure in the Brain and Grandstand constituency, which has been a community eyesore, and having that had the potential of being used for criminal activities. And I'm also thankful to the Member of Parliament for the Brain and Grandstand, the Honorable Wade Watson, for his partnership and his collaboration in this as well. And I want you to know that the people in Brain and Grandstand, they're happy. They're happy, and it is our job, it's everybody's job, to ensure that people feel safe where they live. In conclusion, Deputy Speaker, I am confident that Urban Renewal, working in collaboration with the community and our private and public sectors, will succeed in developing and implementing programs to improve the quality of life for all. Deputy Speaker, as we move forward, Urban Renewal's strategic priorities are formulated on a foundation of 3 pillars: people-centered, private and public sector partnerships, and meaningful projects to improve the quality of life in our communities. These three pillars are definitely critical to our success. Everything we do is underpinned by execution and accountability for our performance. And I would certainly like to thank publicly the honorable member for West End and Bimini, who always supports me and supports our ideas and give us the input and the direction on all these events that we do. I'm very grateful for your direction. Very grateful. Deputy Speaker, our success will hinge on how we invest in our people, how we build mutually beneficial partnerships, and how we deliver on our projects. And most of the men in here, Deputy Speaker, who love football, will be excited about this one quote that I love dearly. I will put it the way Vince Lombardi said it. Gentlemen, we will chase perfection, and we will chase it relentlessly, knowing all the while we can never attain it. But along the way, we shall catch excellence. Deputy Speaker, for those who may not know Vince Lombardi, he was an American football coach and is considered by many to be the greatest and the most winningest coach in NFL history. The Super Bowl trophy that all of you clap about is named after him. And I would want to say that while we strive for perfection and urban renewal, I know along the way, we are certainly going to reach excellence. And I'm fine with that. Deputy Speaker, so now I say, the people of Marathon and I support this mid-year budget.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for St. Anne's.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are two sections in the supplementary budget. I referred to the one that's found on page 174, which shows for the Ministry of Labor and Immigration. The Minister for Carmichael, the member for Carmichael represents the Minister of Labor and Immigration on page 174. It shows a reduction of the figure that I did quote in my speech of 40,792. The good member from Freetown, however, was looking at the total on page 104. This is an amount that I didn't notice before, but what he said, where there is actually an increase of $578,542, that's there. My original statement was correct. This, however, is additional money. I looked at it, Mr. Deputy Speaker. $378,642 is going towards salary. And now listen to this, in the middle of an immigration task force operation where we have, 140 odd persons in custody, picked up over the last month at $5,000 a head per person. We have $200,000 allocated to repatriation of illegal immigrants. It's an increase of $200,000. When you divide that by 5,000 per person, you're only gonna deport 40 people with that amount of money, and we're in the middle of an immigration task force, a national crisis. That's not enough money. You're not taking this thing seriously. My point remains.
The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Freetown.
Deputy Speaker, point of order. My MP was suggesting that there was a decrease in the immigration budget. On the maths that I was taught at Kingsway Academy, 40,000.
Honorable Member, 1 minute.
Sorry.
One minute. Okay. The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Freetown.
Where is this? Yeah. Well, we can finish this intervention and then we can suspend if you're concerned. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Yes.
The point is very simple. My member of Parliament for St. Anne's made the assertion that we were decreasing the budget for labor and immigration during this crisis, and we were not serious. If he looks at page 174, he will find that there are adjustments that total out to only 40,000. But on page 103, which is also the Department of Immigration particularly, well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what the member for Finance doesn't seem to grasp is there's a Ministry of Labor and Immigration, and there's a Bahamas Department of Immigration. And the Ministry of Labor and Immigration has a reduction of 40,000. The Department of Immigration has an increase of $500,000, which nets out at $460,000. And to the point of the crisis, the increases are for permanent salaries, which is an increase of manpower by 378,642. These are the people who are in Abaco arresting people. And it's an increase over the amount allocated. And then for repatriation of illegal immigrants, there is an increase. There is an increase. There is an increase. There is an increase.
Honorable Member for Finance. So, I recognize the Honorable Member for Freetown. No. We will have.
Yield, my junior.
No.
I thought you better.
Honorable Member for Finance. No. You will have your seat. You had your chance. Let him finish. Yeah, we let's let him finish. If you want to, you can get up after he's done. Yeah, let's.
But the heads that are increased shows who is serious about it. You have an increase in the people on the ground catching people who are to be repatriated, and then you have an increase after the half-year point of $200,000 to a grand total of $2 million from $1.8 million to send these people home. That is because we are serious. That is because we are ramping up. So to suggest that there is a decrease that indicates a failure to focus on this area is misleading. The member for North Abaco, the member for Central and South Abaco could tell you what even Kai Mills says. That the member for Carmichael, that their men are on the ground catching people and sending them home. Not going live, catching people and sending them home.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Finance.
To speak again. The member from Freetown didn't say anything other than what I said when I originally rose, with the correction, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And the fact remains, they've only decided to increase the budget for repatriation by 200,000. Is that not correct? That's correct. It's in here, Mr. Deputy Speaker. They're increasing the repatriation budget by 200,000. There's already been representations that each person that's taken into custody costs the nation $5,000. That's 40 people. That's 40 people. That's 40 people. That's what y'all saying. So what y'all doing with the rest of the money if the flight don't cost that much money? The people understand you're costing this country $5,000 per person. The minister said that you have over 140 in custody. You only have accounted for 40 persons. You only have accounted for 40 persons. 40 persons. You have 140 plus in custody. We're accounting for 40 persons. It's a new day.
All right, thank you, Honorable Member.
It's a new day. What y'all doing? Y'all can send
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Back to Nassau.
As
Y'all
many?
put them back to work where they're supposed to be working. They were trying to work
Now,
illegally.
hold on.
Kick them out the country.
Finance. Now that's the second time I've warned you. Please.
You did.
And now I know.
Said,
Yeah. Okay. Listen. Listen. I am telling you to have you take a seat. As many, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Central Grand Bahama.
Deputy.
Before the time starts, I'm getting reports, in spite of the fact that there's mixed report about the signals. It's in and out, it's intermittent. On the phone, you cannot hear at all. I tried to listen to the member for Marathon, and it's just a bunch of humming. Couldn't even, we missed her whole presentation. So it is really not fair for us to present under these conditions.
1 minute. We will check the clerk.
Mr. Deputy. We have checked with the television station even here, and the feed here is fine. He's talking about intermittent circumstances. We may have that, but we are recording, Madam Mr. Deputy, and the full recording will be aired. That's the whole purpose. That's the whole purpose of a recording. So if there is an issue, when it's played back in its full.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Kalani.
Mr. Deputy, it is unfair for the opposition to get up and speak. The opposition supporters, yes, we're the minority, and the member for Grand Bahama said that the majority of the people can hear. The majority can hear. They won the government with the majority. We are the minority. They can't hear. It's just unfair for us. It's unfair. It's unfair to the opposition to proceed with this debate when their supporters cannot hear it.
Mr. Deputy, the reality is we want all members to be heard. But there have been circumstances in the past where they've had difficulties with the intermittent sounds. The audio failed in some circumstances, but we recorded, Mr. Deputy. And because there is a recording, it's played back in its full. So there's not an issue. And that happens from time to time. And we do not believe it's to that extent even today. We believe there are some issues, but we do not believe it's to the extent that we have to suspend the session. Wish to continue, Mr. Deputy. The session is being fully recorded and it will be played back in its full.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Kalani.
Mr. Deputy, we are talking about the budget. We're talking about the vehement economy. How are we going to advance the country? It's essential that individuals here not to be replayed at some other time when they may not listen.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Central Grand Bahama.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. I'm advised that Serenus is back up, so. Mr. Deputy, parliamentary colleagues, good day. You speaking to me or speaking to the chair? As I rise to make my contribution to this mid-term budget, I want to start by thanking the good and great residents of Central Grand Bahama for their continued support and encouragement. I am forever grateful to represent them in this honored house, ensuring that their best interests are always at the forefront. They are hardworking, loving, and progressive Bahamian citizens who are simply seeking a happy and fulfilled life. I'd like to give shout outs, first of all, to my wife and my daughters, my siblings, who I believe is watching. I'm not sure they can hear me.
They can.
I want to congratulate again the Sunland Stingers for their victory in the Hugh Campbell basketball tournament. You know, the coach hailed from Central Grand Bahama, one of my students. I also want to congratulate the Tabernacle Falcons and the St. George's Jaguars for their gallant effort, and all of those teams who would have put out their best effort during the Hugh Campbell tournament, and also yes to C.I. Gibson and Coach Johnson for putting up a good fight and making it a real good and exciting game. I want to send out condolences to family of MCM Roosevelt Big Rose Curry, who is indeed a descendant of Waterkey. In fact, he was my mother's godbrother. So whenever I traveled to Grand Key, I used to play on that to make sure I get the best rooms. And Big Rose from Grand Key. Yes, he's a descendant of Waterkey also.
You're pretty good at it.
With his mother.
You're super athlete.
Yeah, he's a very good, good guy.
You were good.
Thank you, Mr. West Grand Bahama.
No, you were a good one.
Mr. Deputy, it is always a pleasure for me to share the news of the work we are doing with our backyard farming, and I will never say I will not stop talking about this program and the Central Grand Bahama world famous farmers market. The next edition of the farmers market will be held on March 11th.
We have not invited the minister to visit Japan.
And again, I've invited the minister, I've invited the executive chairman of BAIC, I've invited the whole parliament to come. I believe Fox Hill visited before, and we have several members who came and visited. Nabi was there also.
So you invite Fox Hill, I know that.
But we have two editions coming up on the 11th and on the 18th of March, where we'll be selling a lot of locally grown produce. And I invite all of my parliamentary colleagues across the political divide, and like how Marathon greeted all of us, I want to greet Marathon and the rest of you to invite everyone to come out to Central Grand Bahama and be a part of this wonderful initiative. You know, in this, as I travel around, I've noticed that most people would rather come out there on Saturday mornings and support the local farmers. The produce are freshly grown, they're all organic, and I appreciate all those who come out on a regular basis. And we are having new vendors showing up every week, calling, and we soon run out of space. While we have distributed hundreds of backyard farming kits to residents who want to start their own farms, we are noticing a challenge of maintaining this level of food security and food production. And one of the challenges that farmers are having right now is they cannot afford to pay for fertilizers. The farmers cannot afford to pay for the fertilizers, seed, soil, pesticide, and these necessary items up front. They want to get involved, but they need the support to get where they need to go. But for them to pay is proving to be a roadblock and a serious challenge. I get calls from them every day. I propose the government map out a way to advance materials, equipment, and supplies, and give individuals like these farmers, give them some time, maybe 6 months to a year, for their crops to mature and go to market. Once they sell their produce, sell their livestock, they now have funds where they can pay back, but they need a hand up. As it is right now, I'm getting calls. Yes, the 10-10-10 fertilizers from BAIC is the least expensive, but we cannot afford 40 bags. We cannot afford 50 bags. Pardon?
Would you all give me permission to fly to Morocco? Would your leader give me permission? I'll get you plenty for
Free of charge. Absolutely, absolutely. However,
we thought Morocco was on that itinerary already.
But however we can support these farmers, it is very important because they really want to be a part. They want to be a part of this initiative. Mr. Deputy, today we are fighting multiple issues at all levels. And of course, like I said earlier, one of these issues is food security across the globe. I recently saw the government launch its golden yolk program, which I know is all a part of our development of food security. But I'm curious to find out how this will really work. I'm not criticizing, I'm asking questions. How will it be paid for? Who will benefit from these different egg houses? How will they be managed? And who will oversee the structure and operations? How will the efficiency be guaranteed? Yes, we are continuing to push the envelope on the issues to be prioritized. But we must ensure that Bahamians come first. Let's go further. Before I go on, Mr. Deputy, I want to bring attention to something that has become a real problem for Grand Bahama, and that is the abandoned cities around the city, abandoned buildings around the city. And I believe the Minister of State for Social Security, Social Services from Marathon, I briefly spoke to that issue that is happening in Nassau also. There are dozens of resort properties and buildings on the island where investors have come in and benefited in numerous ways. They got all of the concessions, and for some reason they were allowed to pack up and leave. Even after monstrous storms, they collected insurance money, they left the properties with no plans for future and no care for the average Bahamian citizen. In fact, they left owing private citizens and the public and private sectors outstanding funds. These properties are still there. They are eyesores, they are health hazards, and as was indicated, with respect to what's happening in Baintown, they are crime-breeding areas. and we must find a way where we can have a solution to this issue.
You're talking about the Freeport?
We are talking about dilapidated buildings all over. Yes, there are some in Freeport.
But Freeport, the Port Authority, you think?
We must, well, we need to step in because we need to step in and get it done because the buildings
But
out
they had
there,
ruled before.
well, we must get it done. As a country, as a government, we must get it done. Yeah, to say that it was there a long time is not solving the problem. We need to step in on behalf of the people and get it done. We must find the owners and give them timelines where they must comply with the heads of agreement, improve on their properties, and if they cannot comply, give the properties back to the state and the people.
You're talking about like Harcourt?
We cannot have those properties in the middle of the city, along our beaches, in a dilapidated form where they are serving no purpose. These investors have already benefited from the Bahamian people and are falling down on their commitments to the government and the people. They are like ghosts, nowhere to be seen. Mr. Deputy, it is not unusual for government to intervene in matters like this. Let us act and act now. The previous administration stepped in to provide remediation to several parts of Grand Bahama for the good of the people. Give you some examples. We clean up Hudson Estate area, clean up Malibu Reef and portion of Bahamia. We repaired roads in Hudson Estate. That's outside of our scope of works. But we step in on behalf of the people. Even though it wasn't our responsibility as a government, we step into private subdivisions. We know that Bahamians shouldn't be allowed to suffer. It is time to step up again and address this issue head on. Mr. Deputy, I see since Madam Speaker is not here, I'm allowed to drink from the bottle. I wish you well in our recovery. I see that the government has begun tearing down dangerous and dilapidated buildings to prevent them from being used as hotspots for criminal activities. I understand that demolition like this will take place throughout various communities in New Providence. I hope it also expands to the Family Islands. I applaud these efforts, Mr. Deputy. This is a very good start to a serious problem I believe that has been allowed to go on in and around our country for far too long. It is my only hope that the government is taking the necessary steps to protect the Bahamian people from any more liability that these properties may pose. Mr. Deputy, Grand Bahama Island and its people have taken beatings after beatings, and each time we've risen above the trials and tribulations. But Grand Bahamians are ready for more than just talk. They want action. They want movement. I call on the powers that be to seek to address these concerns expeditiously. Mr. Deputy, when the former government left office, the administration met an economy on the uptick. Facts. This is the first time a new government could come into office and not have to worry about the treasury being broke. They made it fat, thanks to our vigilance and fiscal policies. The FN administration took the country from a decade of no growth to a consecutive period of economic growth prior to Hurricane Dorian and the pandemic. We ensured that there was a strong pipeline of inward investment to fuel sustained economic growth. Once the country was hit by the historic storm and global health crisis, we moved to implement several initiatives to keep the fiscal gains we had over the previous years. Mr. Deputy, I echo the words of my opposition colleagues that this budget does nothing for the Bahamian people and does not reveal any new measures to help them. It missed the mark once again. You are continuing to fail the Bahamian people, and they deserve more. All we see are more taxes forthcoming, more hard times forthcoming. We warn about the inflation and question when we shall see relief, but still we get us more PR, photo ops, and travel bills. The government travel expenditure, as was mentioned earlier, for the fiscal year has increased once again from $14.8 million to $18.8 million. A $4 million increase in travel. My goodness. What the young people will say, this makes no sense. They're being overlooked. This new government is continuing their world tour. Where is the priority for the Bahamian people that could go towards the many other challenges we're having throughout this country? Well, it's support for the people who are struggling to support their families.
Ambulances. The people powered ambulances.
Mr. Deputy, I need thank you. Instead, Mr. Deputy, we are paying for the government's entourage to stamp their passports across the world. In fact, I believe their passport have more stamps in it than when I travel on the track and field circuit. Mr. Deputy, the Bahamian people want a reduction in their daily expenses. They want taxes reduced on health care. They want VAT on bread basket items back to zero rated. Thank you. They want access to home ownership. They want education and a guaranteed future. They want national development. They don't want tax and spend policies. They don't want lip service. It is our job as the opposition to ensure that the government remains transparent and accountable. Mr. Deputy, before I pivot, I want to draw quick attention to touch on a new program I saw launched for short-term vacation rentals, and I think this was mentioned by the member for East Grand Bahama earlier today. I understand the logic, but I'd like to understand how the government intends to prioritize the Bahamian who will now be impacted by this new policy. I'll say that again. I understand the logic, but I'd like to understand how the government intends to prioritize the Bahamians who will be now impacted by this new policy. Now, I could be wrong, but I see this as a double-edged sword. We need to know if this is a new way to tax the local struggling Bahamians. It's a question. Is it a way to tax them now? Is the government going to use this as an opportunity to now track the local man and go after the little dollars that they're bringing in on the side? Is this a trap?
Yep.
I say go hard, this is what I'm saying, go hard after the second homeowners and the winter residents and other rich outsiders that build properties and rent and lease it to their families and friends visiting the country. Go after that market first. Focus on the real property taxes on the rich and super rich the previous administration left in place. If you put real property tax on those properties that are being left underdeveloped, then you can force.
Order, members.
I will speak with my
members.
to be heard.
Keep that rolling.
I'm dead serious. I'm dead serious. I'm dead. You would like for me to be done. You would like for me to be done, but in time. If you put real property tax on those properties that have been left undeveloped, then you could force those investors to develop them. Instead of finding ways of taxing the small man's dollars, find a way to support them to build second vacation rentals. Encourage them to offer experiences to visitors who cannot afford the big hotels or truly want to come to the Bahamas for a down-home, truly Bahamian experience. You know, now I'm not advocating for anyone to break the law, nor should we turn a blind eye to any business that are being profit within those countries without being regulated. I'm not advocating for that. But we must ensure that when these policies are put in place, they are not done to disadvantage our own people. The Airbnb or the small short-term vacation rentals, in Grand Bahama in particular, they're filling a void. And on the islands, we have a shortage of hotel rooms. These persons are filling the void that is needed. And they are generating still small dollars. The economy is not bursting at the same right now. So eventually, if we continue along this path, we're going to stop that dollar from coming in directly into the economy. So let's look at this policy seriously. Let's look at this policy seriously to ensure that we do not, I'm not saying that's the intention, but let us be mindful of the impact it could have on mom and pop, on the small man who's struggling to make $1.50. Let us ensure that it's done right. And I'm glad it's what they pay. Go after the second homeowners, go after the rich expats, go after them. Leave the small struggling man alone.
Know the inventory.
Now, I speak briefly to the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, and I'm so seeing that the member is not here, he had a speaking engagement. Mr. Deputy, I'm always passionate when I speak to the work we do as a country with our youth, sports, and culture. I will never, I'm humble in most areas, but I'll never be humble in declaring that the Bahamas has some of the most talented athletes in the world.
That's good.
That's a fact.
That's good.
And we love to prop them up and take credit for their success. I was eager to see all of the sport events we have on the calendar for the year, with the country attracting major sporting events. The Bahamas Games. In fact, we announced it last year. Thank you, the government is continuous. The Caribbean Track, oh yes. Oh yes. The Caribbean Track and Field Championship, the World Athletic Relays, and a host of other sporting events make their way to our beautiful Bahamian shores. The Sports in Paradise Initiative, and I'm giving credit, is great. It's great to diversify the tourism product. I'm giving credit. The Sports in Paradise Initiative is a great way to diversify the tourism product. The sporting opportunities for Bahamians and the exposure of Bahamian athletes, I say this is very encouraging. But, Mr. Deputy, I am a bit disappointed because I don't believe that there's enough funding put in place in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture to really cover all of these events in the way that it should be. When are we going to be really become serious, a serious country about our sporting industry? We talk about the orange economy. Are we really putting money into the orange economy?
That's why you get sponsorship.
Are we really putting our funds into it? And when you can't get a sponsorship, the government takes up the slack.
No,
Will it take us another 50 years for us to realize that we have what we have and who we are on the world stage? I guess we'll have to wait for another new day for that to happen. I said before, when we begin this global position, we must be prepared, and we do not look fully prepared. It is my hope that we will see the partnership of the private sector, like you mentioned, and the community to make sure the Bahamas is represented at the highest level at these events. You know, we said to the teams, the minister said to the team this morning that let the world know that we coming for our things. Well, it's our thing to keep. Let them know that they didn't get our thing, but we must make sure that we are prepared. And I'm happy to hear that the curricular trials in the high school nationals is combined. Maybe a little bit late, but we should see the best of the best and the best team put forward by the Bahamians. But those other teams, they're not coming here unprepared. They're coming to take our things. So we must put those athletes in a position to maintain the gold and the silver and the bronze in the Bahamas so that they won't leave the country. You know, it must be underscored that youth, sports, and culture are three of the major fabrics of our Bahamian identity that requires investment and investment at the highest level. Mr. Deputy, before I close, I'd like to speak briefly to the National Youth Policy. Mr. Deputy, during my tenure, I was able to advocate for the National Youth Policy to be updated, and by the time I left, a team was working on it, working to update it and bring it in line with today's happening. And the minister mentioned that team is being headed by Ms. Neely. A previous cabinet paper was approved for $1 million to implement the National Youth Policy. This policy will empower the youth. It will put them in a position where they will have a voice around the table, where they can speak to matters that concerns them. They could be a part of the decision-making process that speaks to their needs, that speaks to their future. That's why I advocated so much for this policy to be made a major focus of my time there. In this budget, this administration is simply giving the National Youth Policy, in my view, lip service. Even less than that. When I look at the line item, a previous cabinet approved $1 million. In this midterm budget, less than $100,000 is allocated for this policy. Drop in the bucket. I don't think we are serious about protecting and empowering our people.
Did you get the $1 million?
We must.
No, did you get it?
A previous cabinet paper was approved.
And what happened?
And it was approved. And before it was implemented, things happened. Mr. Deputy.
What happened to it? I mean, what happened? I mean,
Things happen.
It's still on the paper.
You're not in the chair. You're not in the chair.
It's still on
So
the paper.
you are not in the chair.
Oh, you
So
left it
governors
on
are
the paper.
continue with $1 million that was approved.
Oh, you left it
to
on the
implement.
paper.
Yeah,
Okay.
to implement this national youth policy. It's
No,
a
you-
serious matter. It is a
I am
serious
with
matter.
you. You left it on the paper.
Thank you. We must prioritize. We must prioritize the future of our youth. Crime against women and children continues to be an issue of major concern.
Talking to my friend.
We must find more ways to empower and protect the most vulnerable in our society. The National Youth Policy sets out as a guide to do just this. Stop kicking the can down the road. Let us do what we have to do to protect the most vulnerable. Our children need protection. Our women need protection. Our youth need empowerment. Because the very individuals that they go to for protections are the individuals that are perpetrating the crimes against them.
Focus on track.
So let us make sure that we put some money towards the implementation of this national youth policy. We make it relevant to ensure that we take care of those that we need to take care of. It is integral that we ensure that this policy goes full speed ahead in order to protect our children, empower our youth, and provide opportunities to secure their future. We must also put incentives in place to not only stop the brain drain, but give Bahamians reason to want to return home and be active citizens in our future development. Mr. Deputy, I'm not going to be needing any more time. We have so many amazing, brilliant, and talented Bahamians in this country who are just waiting for the opportunity to shine. You must give them the space to do just that. Mr. Deputy, we know that with the unpredictability of the state of the world, we must remain on guard at all times. As always, the official opposition is here to provide bipartisan support for this New Day government. When you would listen. I thank the people of the Bahamas, and I thank God for his many blessings over the Commonwealth in these new and unpredictable days. I'm continually honored and grateful for this responsibility to be a representative for the good people of Central Grand Bahama, and will continue to do my best and do my part to advance our country forward, upward, onward, together. Central Grand Bahama, rest.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Golden Isles.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you. I rise this evening, and I'm thankful and grateful to the constituents in the great constituency of Golden Isles. Thank God for his grace, for his mercies, and he has kept us. He's been good to us. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I should like to begin and share with regards to several events in our constituency. Last evening, I was honored to be the guest speaker at the PLP Bamboo Town branch's monthly meeting. I wish to thank Madam Speaker and the fine officers and the fine members of the branch for the invitation and for their gracious hospitality. The meeting was extremely well attended, and I wish to thank the many members who accompanied me from Golden Isles. Thank them for their show of support. It was overwhelming. I'm humbled and I'm grateful. Mr. Deputy Speaker, our combined forces stirred CV Bethel so loud that some people in another part of the building were having a meeting, and they sent out several spies to spy the land out, fully regaled, to see what was going on.
We are well able to possess the land.
And the report went back They disappeared, no longer to be seen. Break off running. It demonstrated the power of unity and what we can achieve when we work together towards a common goal. I hope that the information shared was educational, informative, and provided persons with a better understanding of my ministry's agenda. And I wish to again thank Madam Speaker. In Golden Isles, we're continuing our efforts to provide the best quality of life possible. We're still challenged, but we're committed to the task at hand and will continue to agitate for the issues to be resolved. I wish to share with regards to our health and our wellness club. We'll be celebrating our 2nd anniversary this month. And I want to commend the entire team, I want to commend our constituency office and the entire team. They've been doing an excellent job. They meet in Bacardi Park every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 6:30 to 7:30 in the evening. And we have certified instructors, and all residents, guests are welcome. This initiative is offered free of charge. And Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy Chair, we're thankful, we're grateful to the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development. We finally found a location that has been approved, and certainly the residents would look forward to the day. And we hope very soon that we'll be able to say that there's an urban renewal in Golden Isles. And those days of having to go all the way up to Nassau Street, that they can now walk to the office or take a bus, and they'll receive the service that they so desperately need. It is said that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And indeed, this 2022-23 budget was the Davis-led administration's first opportunity to chart its course, which was outlined in our blueprint for change. Though at this midterm point, we can still note assuredly that progress has been made. The Ministry of the Environment and Natural Resources, where I'm honored to serve as minister and have the member for my Cal as the Minister of State, has embraced our remit and has steadily set out to fulfill our mandate. The Department of Environmental Health Services, DEHS, their program to routinely identify and remove derelict or abandoned vehicles is ongoing, as derelict and abandoned vehicles throughout our island have been systematically identified and has generated via complaints and also surveillance. In accordance with the law, public health orders are fixed with instructions to have the vehicle removed within 7 days following the posting of the notice. Some 1,470 vehicles were identified, and of them, 1,415 have been removed by the department. The 55 vehicles not removed were determined to be under repair. I assure you, we will be continuing with that program shortly, and derelict vehicles, we will be aggressively pursuing their removal. Our National Beautification Program is in collaboration with the Ministry of Social Services and Urban Development. It's an initiative specifically geared to create a cleaner Bahamas on our road to our 50th or our golden anniversary. It commenced on the 21st of October on the island of New Providence. Derelict vehicles and bulk waste removal exercises have been conducted in Angleton, in Fox Hill, Freetown, Bain and Grantstown, Golden Isles, Centerville, Fort Charlotte, Yamacraw, Elizabeth, Seabreeze, Carmichael, and the Southern Shores. And I should like to let Madam Speaker know that we will keep our word, and when we resume, of course, she can expect Bamboo Town to lead that number. To date, the department has spent almost $1 million on this project, where approximately 4,810 tons or 9,617,000 pounds of garbage thus far have been removed from the above-mentioned constituencies. The cleaning of overgrown and unsanitary lots, we will continue to do them. While the Family Islands Derelict Vehicle and Bulk Waste project has begun in Cat Island and will continue and be extended when we resume with the program. The objective of the project is to enhance the general aesthetics of the Bahamas and create a sustained, clean environment through our national cleanup, through public education, and law enforcement. To achieve this end, we require a significant reduction of bulk waste in New Providence and our family of islands. Over the years, too much garbage accumulation, overgrown properties, derelict vehicles, and other environmental problems have been allowed to exist. We must implement sustainable mechanisms for the maintenance of our environment. We must constantly remind our people of the old adage that says, and that we grew up with, cleanliness is still next to godliness. The Department of Environmental and Health Services continues to carry out its mandate for collection and disposal of residential waste. Our staff continue to monitor the activities of contractors within the 63 residential collection zones. We've had some challenges, but we thank God we've ironed out the kinks, and of course, from time to time we have challenges, but we are satisfied in our accomplishment to date. The DEHS, Department of Environmental Health Services, continues its oversight of dump sites, transfer stations, and landfills throughout our family of islands. There have been several challenges related to the management of the volume of incoming waste. Some improvements have been made regarding frequency of maintenance. Improvements are being discussed for family island sites with respect to the implementation of recycling, composting, and shredding. It is anticipated that a number of these improvements will be implemented during the 2023-24 budget year. Some improvements to the Grand Key dump site were undertaken during the first half of this budget period, while an assessment of various sites in Cat Island was carried out to determine necessary modifications there. Vector control. Mr. Deputy Speaker, ground fogging activities for the control of the adult mosquito was conducted in Long Island, in Eleuthera, Abaco, Grand Bahama, Exuma, San Salvador, Cat Island, and Inagua. Larviciding of standing water and ponds was conducted throughout the family of islands. While there have been some constraints caused by the delay in receipt of shipment of vector control supplies, the supplies are in, and of course, our family islands are receiving their supplies as soon as we can have it shipped to them. The vector control unit has begun also the rodent treatment at Arawa Key and in the Bay Street area, and it will be conducted from Arawa Key and will extend all the way to the Montague foreshore. The unit has begun several treatment programs also in various communities. The Department of Environmental Planning and Protection, DEP. While the department is still relatively a new agency of the government, its impact is felt across the length and breadth of the Bahamas. During this budget cycle, the department has set out to regularize the contractual technical officers serving as environmental officers to permanent and pensionable status. I am pleased to report that all officers recommended have received their letters of appointment to the permanent and pensionable establishment of the public service. And the department is looking to onboard additional Bahamians, to bring on board additional Bahamians with the requisite skill set in the coming months. For much of the year, the officers of the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection have been actively engaged in fulfilling its mandate to prevent and control pollution, to regulate environmental activities, and to administrate the sustainable use of the environment. Through our Certificate of Environmental Clearance process, developments of large and small are regulated, and the balance between development and environmental sustainability can be achieved. Currently, all developments, whether large or small, house or hotel, require a CEC or Certificate of Environmental Clearance from the department to proceed with the project. As the intention of the legislation, Mr. Deputy Speaker, was to regulate activity that could potentially have a negative impact on the environment and not necessarily small developments like home construction. So amendments to the Act are currently before the Office of the Attorney General with the view to having this corrected. And certainly that would mean that a lot of issues from the Family Islands will be able to be resolved on those locations without them having to communicate everything to Nassau. Over the last few months, developments and construction have increased across our family of islands. So did the need for the oversight by the department. In addition to regular site visits as a part of the monitoring process, the department have had to familiarize Family Island administrators and other local government councils with the legislation. Reports from our Family Island partners have led to the issuance of over 10 cease and desist orders in the last 6 months and 2 orders of closure. We wish to thank our partners in our Family of Islands, in Grand Bahama, and here on the island of New Providence for their diligence, their persistence, and their perseverance. Environmental monitoring across our vast archipelago would be that much more difficult without your assistance. And so we ask that you please continue to keep us informed. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in addition to the National Coordination of Environmental Activities, the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection is responsible for the implementation of several multilateral environmental agreements. As a party to the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, the Bahamas' updated nationally determined contribution NDCs was submitted to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change during the last conference of the parties in November. The third national communication and first biannual update report are scheduled for submission within this second quarter. Under the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Bahamas was the first country in the region to enact legislation on access and benefit sharing. The implementation of this legislation was not without its challenges, but may I remind all that this legislation was enacted to bring transparency to the research process throughout the Bahamas and to ensure that where there's a benefit, As a result of research activity within the Bahamas, Bahamians will receive the benefit in the proper amounts, and that there's the appropriate access to the results of research occurring in our country. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this time last year, the Department of Environmental Planning and Protection was the subject of much negative press, as scientists perceived the new process to be unnecessarily arduous. We have worked with our local researchers. We have worked with the Attorney General's office. We have worked with the University of the Bahamas and the local NGO community to increase the understanding of the new process among stakeholders and to gain support from them. Through much hard work and dedication, researchers are receiving permits to conduct scientific research in the Bahamas. We are working with UB to have samples tested at their lab facilities, and this reduces the number of samples that need to be exported. It also increases the government's ability to regulate the research activity and build capacity within the sector. We continue to work with local and international partners to implement other projects of environmental significance across the country. The Bahamas Pine Islands Project is a multi-year project aimed at increasing the productivity of our forest areas, declaring new forest spaces, and enhancing the industries associated with our pine and coppice forests in the Bahamas. We have made great stride in the southern Bahamas with the clearing of the land for cascarilla farming. These sites will be used as test sites and expanded upon using the lessons learned from this initial investment. The Global Environmental Facility 2020 project is working with local consultants to build capacity for effective marine protected area management across several marine protected areas in the Bahamas. Within the next quarter, it is anticipated that a site in Grand Bahama will have solar panels installed to create park lighting and increase safety for park managers and visitors. Mr. Deputy Chair, we also are working with stakeholders to increase the appeal of these protected areas to the public. They exist to protect economically viable marine life, as well as to protect native and endemic species. Recently, nature solutions have been shown to be much more effective at increasing environmental sustainability, and we find that our environment, when left intact, is better able to respond to the adverse impacts of climate change. We encourage every Bahamian, resident, and visitor to pay a visit to a park and become familiar with its unique ecosystem and special offerings. This month, the department, along with the Rocky Mountain Institute, will conduct solar training and energy audit training to selected individuals from the public sector, the private sector, and the quasi-government agencies. As we look to achieve the goal of reducing our carbon emissions and renewable energy introduction, there's a critical need to have local technicians and engineers equipped to address the challenges ahead. This training will provide the groundwork for all those who complete it to sit the next certification exam and therefore further qualifying themselves as competent in the field. It is very important that we capitalize on and optimize our human resources. This can only propel us to meet our collective climate change and Sustainable Development Goals. The Department of Environmental Planning and Protection, with the anticipated onboarding of new staff, will continue its mandate to prevent and control pollution, to regulate environmental activities, and to administrate the sustainable use of the environment, to preserve this environment as an inheritance to every Bahamian. The forestry unit is mandated to develop the forest resources of the Bahamas to their maximum potential by applying sound, scientific, and sustained yield forest management principles and concepts. Forestry Awareness Week, March 21st through the 28th, is a week dedicated annually to build awareness of forestry and forestry-related initiatives locally and activities globally. Each year, a particular theme is prescribed. The theme for last year was Forests and Sustainable Production and Consumption. Due to COVID-19, activities were allowed to take place with protocols in place. The activities included television and radio appearances, World Forestry Day proclamation by our Prime Minister, newspaper advertisement, school visits, tree plantings, and demonstration visits to Abaco, Andros, and Grand Bahama. And that, of course, will continue as we prepare to celebrate Forestry Week, Forestry Awareness Week later this month. A national forestry inventory is one of the key sources of data for emission factors for estimating excuse me. Last year, July, the Forestry Unit established an office in Crooked Island with the view to monitor activities related to forestry and relevant projects, such as the Cascarilla pilot project that we are monitoring closely and will soon bring a full and updated report to this House. Grant funding from the Green Climate Fund, GCF. The Forestry Unit, in collaboration with the Green Climate Fund's executing agency, the Food and Agricultural Organizations, received approval for grant funding in December last year of $900,000 for readiness and preparatory support. The project is entitled Preparation of Strategic Framework to Reduce Deforestation and Forest Degradation and Enhance Adaptive Capacity in the Bahamas. This will assist the Forestry Unit in continuing efforts to collect data on forestry resources throughout the Central and Southern Islands. Efforts are underway to implement the various project activities for the year 2022-2023. Our Blocked Creek Assessment of Andros. The Forestry Unit, in collaboration with the Department of the Environmental Planning and Protection and the EDF, the Environmental Defense Fund, and other non-governmental organizations, will conduct an assessment. Matter of fact, is in the process of conducting assessments of all blocked creek in Andros. This exercise will not be limited to Andros, but of course, that's where it has begun. The goal is to improve connectivity between our mangrove ecosystems to the marine ecosystems of the reefs and larger water bodies. This will in turn improve its biodiversity with improving fish stocks and other essential ecosystem services of our waters.
a repeal and replacement of the Forestry Act 2010 will establish the minister responsible for forestry as a corporation sole. The said lands will be subject to gazettement as the National Forest Estate, comparing forest reserves and conservation forests. A key deliverable of the GEF Pine Island project and the Bahamas' obligation to the United Nations Framework on Climate Change for Mitigation and Adoption and other international conventions. Also, the Pine Islands Forest Mangrove Innovation and Integration Project, a global environment facility, GEF, full-size project attachments entitled Pine Islands Forest Mangrove Innovation, aims to build on recent advancements in the forestry sector by integrating biodiversity values, ecosystem services values, and the precepts of sustainable forest management and land use into enhanced land use planning in the Bahamas. During the upcoming fiscal year, on-ground activities are expected to commence. These activities will include establishing a carbon monitoring system, conduct a national forest inventory throughout the 4 Pine Islands, that's Abaco, Andros, Grand Bahama, and New Providence, and in the pine, coppice, and mangrove forest. Other activities will also be occurring. As I close, Hurricane Dorian in 2019 catastrophically impacted the forest resources in central Abaco, from Marsh Harbor to Treasure Key, and east the Grand Bahama, destroying the pine forests in particular. To restore the ecosystem, salvaging the damaged and the dead pine trees was identified as the appropriate forest management intervention. In Abaco, the New Providence Ecology Park Limited met the basic requirement via RPF and project proposal, and Cabinet agreed a 3-year pine salvage license to the company. In Grand Bahama, a group of Bahamian business persons are forming a Bahamas Forestry Cooperative Society in collaboration with the Department of Cooperatives. The society is preparing a project proposal to salvage the damaged and dead pine trees on Grand Bahama. Cabinet approved a 3-year pine salvage license to the society for commercial forestry purposes. Mr. Deputy Chair, I began by saying that you would note there's a need for us to make a Herculean effort to keep our little nation clean and pristine. And as I close, I do so on the same note, particularly as we continue to the culmination of this 50th anniversary preparatory period. Those persons who continue to dump mattresses, old furniture, and so many other things along our highways, we are asking you to cease and desist. The Ecology Park, the public landfill site, is only minutes away, and there's no charge for accepting your garbage. If they are closed, they have made provision in the parking lot that a dumpster is set up that you can use it to discard your waste. And so, within the next week or so, we shall be very aggressive, we shall be very active in continuing with our derelict vehicle removal program, continuing with our bulk waste removal, and continuing with the clearing of green spaces. And we seek to make our Bahamas clean and green. And we seek to continue on the work that our former minister, Mr. Dorset, the former Honorable Ken Dorset started.
when they popularized the phrase clean, green, and pristine. That, it died since him, but we will revive it. We will restore it. And we will make this country clean, green, and pristine again. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for West Grand Bahama and Bimini.
Yeah, Mr. Deputy, this is appropriate time at the 7 o'clock hour for us to suspend for the evening and return tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the business of the House be suspended to Thursday, the 2nd of March at 2023 at 10 a.m. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The business of the House is suspended until Thursday, the 2nd of March, 2023 at 10 a.m.